Hey everyone, welcome back. Chapters 1061 through 1080 of the previous episode. Escaping Gongyun's illusion and the heavenly armies, Qinmu teleports back to the ghost ship. Realizing his time travel chances are limited, he returns to the Dragon Han era, arriving 100,000 years later. He reunites with Yuan Ling, learning the ancient gods maliciously treat mortals as livestock for sacrifices. Meanwhile, Cho attacks the celestial heavens. During the ensuing chaos, the Celestial Emperor is ambushed and slain by the Celestial Venerables. Utilizing the distraction, Qinmu rescues Gongyun's consciousness and sneaks into the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace for refuge. If you're able to, please support me on PayPal to help me stay active. Thank you. Now let's get back to the story of Tales of Herding Gods audio series. Chapter 1081. The Dragon Qilin loosening the reins for a better grasp. Prince Yuming spoke with North Deity. He was appreciated by them, which made him very happy. Deity Xian said, "It's better that we split with the celestial heavens as early as possible. We should leave for the North Pole now." Deity Wu said, "Although they control Celestial Emperor's corporeal body now, they can't decide on how to divide the spoils, making now the best time to split. If they finalize it, it'll be difficult to be free from the celestial heavens. However, having the celestial palaces leave the celestial heavens is a big thing. People will likely try to stop it. If we act, we should get the other deities to act too." Deity Wu and Deity Xian rose and said, "My son, we discussed this with South Deity, West Deity, and East Deity. We are leaving now to not be constrained by the celestial heavens. We can live freely in our territories and rule the four poles. Isn't it better if we are the celestial emperors of our poles?" Prince Yuming was happy, yet he also felt that it was a pity. He said, "I have many old friends in the celestial heavens. If I want to see them again, I'll probably take me years to come to the celestial heavens. Your friends are bad and superficial friends. There's no need to miss them." Deity Wu had divined King Gongyun's capabilities as she said, "It's better if you get rid of them. When we reach the poles, you'll be the prince of the poles' celestial emperor. You'll be happy and free." Deity Xian said, "This split is a major event. There'll probably be difficulties. My son, you will fly out of the celestial heavens with the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace and go north following the Celestial River. I'll stay here with your mother to protect and escort you." Prince Yuming was happy that he was valued. Deity Wu loved her son, so she gave him the glassy sky pagoda, saying, "This treasure was forged with our lifelong savings. With it you can block any danger. Remember, you must not lose it." Prince Yuming nodded. The North Deity couple arranged for everything. They smiled at one another when suddenly a loud rumble came. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace rumbled and gradually rose, splitting itself from the celestial heavens and celestial street as it did. Ancient gods like the Great Sun Sovereign were shocked when they saw it. He immediately mobilized reinforcements to block them. At the same time, loud rumbling came from the south, west, and east of the celestial heavens. The gods of the celestial heavens watched with disbelief as the Vermilion Bird Celestial Palace, White Tiger Celestial Palace, and Green Dragon Celestial Palace also split themselves from the celestial heavens and rose into the sky. Many important officials of the celestial heavens like the 7 masters, 5 constables, and 4 heavenly masters flew to the celestial palaces to seek audiences with the 4 deities to dissuade them. North Deity Xian Wu went to pretend to comply, while they secretly used their magic power to get the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to leave the celestial heavens. The Great Sun Sovereign quickly reported this at the numinous Sky Hall. At that moment, Celestial Emperor seemed to be seated with many celestial venerables and leaders of races. They appeared to be talking about important things, as the atmosphere seemed tense. The Great Sun Sovereign quickly reported on the event, and the celestial venerables and race leaders meditated without speaking. The ancient Celestial Emperor spoke. "I have important things to discuss for now and can't go and stop them. Star Sovereign, use the Celestial River Navy, the armies of the 4 sects, the 10 guards of the celestial heavens, the 5 carriages, and other armies to try and stop their celestial palaces first." The Great Sun Sovereign bowed and nodded. The ancient Celestial Emperor waved and gave him the commander's seal to mobilize the 10 guards of the celestial heavens. The Great Sun Sovereign left hastily. Silence filled the numinous Sky Hall still. After a while, Celestial Venerable Hua laughed and said, "The 4 deities will be gone if this stalemate continues. The ancient gods must be killed. None of the 4 deities is allowed to live. Give me Celestial Emperor's corporeal body and let me kill them. I don't want this corporeal body. I'll return it after I've killed them. You lot can fight over it." Everyone coldly laughed. Celestial Venerable Hua became furious and suddenly withdrew his primordial spirit from Celestial Emperor's corporeal body. He rose and said, "I'll kill South Deity." Son of Heavenine hesitated and said, "I'll go and take a look at the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace." They left. Those that remained still didn't move. Celestial Venerable Yun suddenly said, "The stalemate can't continue. I have a suggestion. We shall take turns being Celestial Emperor. We'll take shifts and keep tabs on one another. We can create a system that prevents one from occupying Celestial Emperor's corporeal body." After a while, Celestial Venerable House smiled and said, "I agree." In the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace, Prince Yuming went to find Yenner and the others. He apologized to the Dragon Qilin, saying, "You truly are extraordinary. You could see the situation in the celestial heavens so keenly. It's just that I can't escort the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to the North Pole alone. Thus, I would like to ask for your help." The Dragon Qilin and Yenner looked at each other. Yenner agreed, while the Dragon Qilin said with some visible hardship, "Our cultivation is weaker than yours, how can we help?" Yenner immediately shut up. The Dragon Qilin said, "Truth be told, I've witnessed heavenly knowledge and learned algebra, but I can do little. Your escort will definitely be blocked by the gods of the celestial heavens. The 10 guards of the celestial heavens, celestial river navy, 5 carriages, heavenly spirits, earthly fiends, star gods." He observed Prince Yuming's expression. Every time he mentioned a great army, his skin would shake. The Dragon Qilin sighed and said, "We can't defend against their attacks without a powerful treasure. We can't even protect ourselves, let alone the celestial palace. Let us return, brother." Prince Yuming held his hand and said, "Brother, sister, you two can't go back even if you want to. The Vermilion Bird Celestial Palace and Green Dragon Celestial Palace have already left the celestial heavens. Where can you two go? The 4 deities' bloodlines are united as one. Help me return to the North Pole, and I'll personally send you two back." He admitted, "I can't fight a war or lead an army. I lack wisdom too. When they attack, I need you to help me adjust the formation of my palace's disciples too." The Dragon Qilin hesitated. Prince Yuming said, "You don't trust me? Follow me." He led them to the front of the celestial palace and pointed to a place far away, saying, "Look." The Dragon Qilin and Yenner looked towards the celestial heavens. They saw giant celestial palaces leaving the celestial heavens with thousands of their palaces and halls. Besides South Deity, West Deity, and East Deity's celestial palaces, other large celestial palaces were also leaving the celestial heavens. They were likely Heaven Duke, Mother Earth, and Earth Count's celestial palaces. At that moment, the celestial heavens rose up gently without the pressure from these celestial palaces. It seemed on track to drift out of the primordial realm. Besides that, they also saw gods flying about in the celestial heavens and giving orders. Armies of the celestial heavens flew out to chase after the celestial palaces. The Dragon Qilin's complexion grew pale as he said, "Brother, we're doomed." Prince Yuming apologized and said, "I know I was wrong, but we can triumph still. Father and Mother left the glassy sky pagoda for me to guard the celestial palace with. It's an impressive treasure that has been hailed as the #1 treasure in the world. With your intelligence and this treasure, we can triumph." The Dragon Qilin bitterly said, "How can one mere treasure block the armies of the celestial heavens? Brother, you're better off abandoning the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace and running away with the treasure." Prince Yuming pulled them towards the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace's numinous sky hall, saying, "That's because you two haven't seen the pagoda yet. If you two see it, you'll be relieved." The Dragon Qilin smiled and leisurely said, "We needed to distract him and make him relax to capture him. We now have Prince Yuming." Yenner was unnerved as she whispered, "This brother Yuming is so honest and generous. Is it too much of us to steal his glassy sky pagoda and cause him to be suppressed for 600,000 years by North Deity?" The Dragon Qilin hesitated and said, If we don't, he'd probably die before the Eternal Peace era. Stealing it counts as saving his life. Yenner always felt that it was wrong to deceive Prince Yuming. After some thinking she said, even if we don't steal it, North Deity will find a reason to suppress him anyway so that he won't die from people like Son of Heaven Een. Fatty Dragon, if we don't have to steal it, we shouldn't. The Dragon Qilin hesitated before nodding and saying, sounds good. We can stay here and rely on the pagoda's protection until Cult Master recovers. They decided to follow Prince Yuming to the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace's numinous sky hall. Before they entered, the extravagance of it scared them. They were shocked again when they entered. They saw giant jade glass pillars that held up canopies that were of a sky-green color, resembling sugarcane. When they approached, they could see that the canopy stretched out layer by layer as if stacked together. Inside the canopy, all sorts of treasure light filtered in, as if it were hiding a small sun. The Dragon Qilin looked up from below. He became dazzled when he saw how each canopy had jade pearls hanging down, and there were all sorts of treasures laid within like bronze towers. Stars orbited within the canopy too. Sometimes they were close and sometimes they were far away. They were too bright when they were close, but when they were far away they became like stars in the night sky. My goodness! The Dragon Qilin probed. Brother, how does one use the pagoda? Prince Yuming lifted the pagoda and carried it outside as he said, what you ask from it, it will deliver. It's created from the lifelong savings of my parents. It's easy to use. He bowed and said to the banner, baby, give us some food. The canopy of the glassy sky pagoda rotated, and all sorts of delicacies fell from it. The Dragon Qilin and Yenner were shocked. Prince Yuming caught the falling food and distributed it, saying, baby, rain. Before he finished, the clouds gathered, and rain fell all over the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Prince Yuming laughed as he bowed and said, baby, please protect the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Whoosh! The pagoda suddenly expanded as its canopies became heavens. In total, 28 heavens surrounded the Celestial Palace. Each one of them had all sorts of treasures hanging from it. The sun and moon orbited it, and the stars shifted. It was glorious. In the space of the heavens there were also jade pearls which expanded to become large planets of outer space. Bronze towers, flowers, trees, clouds, and rivers floated around as well. They slowly moved in the sky and gave off all sorts of divine lights. The Dragon Qilin looked up and saw how at the top of the 28 heavens, there was a heaven ball hanging down. There were all sorts of great Tao runes on it that flickered. It was likely the core treasure of the pagoda. This heaven ball. The palace maid that Gong Yun borrowed to live suddenly shuddered. She immediately transmitted her voice to Qin Mu via consciousness. North Deity Xian Wu brought out a terrifying guy from the ancestral court. The couple really is daring. How dare they refine this egg to become a treasure? Qin Mu sat under the tree, cycling his heart and spirit, as he utilized the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique to refine the primordial liquid that Wei Suifeng poured into his stomach. He felt his corporeal body and vital qi growing stronger, though the primordial liquid in his body remained. Egg! Qin Mu became slightly agitated as he lifted his head to look at the top of the 28 heavens. There was indeed a giant heaven ball floating as it exchanged glows with other treasures. That's an egg. The consciousness that Qin Mu put in the tree was disorderly. The heaven ball really was an egg. It was similar to the egg of Tai Shi and Tai Chu. However, it wasn't entirely like the egg of Tai Chu. Tai Chu's great Tao runes were imprinted on the inside of the egg. Qin Mu got half of Celestial Emperor's eggshell, which he fused with his third eye, making its nature clear to him. The Tao voice of Tai Shi's egg came from within, though he hadn't researched Tai Shi's Tao yet. The core treasure of the Glassy Sky Pagoda also came from an egg of the ancestral court, but its great Tao runes were imprinted on the outside. Could it be that there are other ancient god eggs besides those of Celestial Emperor Tai Chu and Tai Shi? He stabilized his chaotic consciousness and grew curious. Is Black Tortoise not afraid of causing a catastrophe by bringing it out of the ancestral court? Divine King Gong Yun was displeased. Qin Mu was agitated. Gong Yun seemed to know a lot about this weird ancient god egg, so he probed, where did this egg come from? Before waiting for an answer, he continued, I know that Celestial Emperor was born from the ancient god egg dug out of the ancient divine stone mine by the Juyu clan. Thus it was powerful. However, I didn't know that there were more than one of such eggs. The maid hesitated before replying. Since you know the origin of Celestial Emperor, I won't hide anything from you. When the Juyu clan found the oldest Grand Primordium Divine Stone mine and dug out the egg, the Grand Primordium Origin Stone was born with it. The ancient god that came from the egg became the ancient Celestial Emperor of today. However, other masters of creation also found old mines, and the divine stones that came from those mines weren't Grand Primordium Divine Stones. Qin Mu's heart jumped. Gong Yun continued. In total, there were 5 of these ancient mines if you include the Grand Primordium Divine Stone mine. After the Taichu egg was dug out, other mines were found with similar things. 2 mines had nothing, and during the conquest of the Grand Emperor, 2 of the eggs were lost.
Qin Mu blinked.
One of those eggs was held by Celestial Emperor and hidden in the Clear Sun Hall. Another of the eggs was held by North Deity Xianwu and forged to become a treasure, the main part of the Glassy Sky Pagoda. Humph! Black Tortoise doesn't know how to recognize treasures. How could they treat the egg as a giant gemstone and the mainframe of the Glassy Sky Pagoda? Gong Yun laughed. Idiots! The so-called reliability of the treasure comes from the manipulation of the ancient god within. It's the ancient god that's responding. North Deity Xianwu will be hurt by it eventually.
Qin Mu groaned.
This egg with great Tao runes on the outside seemed similar to the treasures born from heaven and earth. However, it wasn't necessarily true that North Deity failed to recognize that it was an ancient god egg. It was possible that they recognized it but couldn't hatch it. What power did the ancient god within have? Suddenly, a call came from a faraway place. Dao brother Yu Ming, Dao brother Yu Ming. It's me, Yin Chaojin. Prince Yu Ming was delighted as he said to the dragon Qilin and Yener. It's my friend. It'll be easy to return with his help. I'll let him in. Hold it. The dragon Qilin's gaze flickered. Brother, Yin Chaojin and Celestial Venerable How are quite close. This person has been up to no good all along. This time around he is most likely here to stop you from leaving. It might even have been him who led the army of the celestial heavens to come and stop you. Prince Yu Ming hesitated for a moment, moving to the palace gate to look around. He saw that Yin Chaojin was currently chasing in the direction of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace, with the great army of the celestial heavens right behind him along with countless ships and their fluttering flags. It seemed to be exactly as this brother dragon had said, with Yin Chaojin really leading the great army of the celestial heavens there to attack him. Prince Yu Ming was instantly enraged and he cried out loudly, Yin Chaojin, I treated you as a brother, yet you treat me as a fool. If I let you in, the celestial heavens troops of tigers and wolves will just come and trample my Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Son of Heaven Yin turned around to look before laughing. You've been so guarded because you thought that I'm with them? Dao brother, I came here to tip you off, but I was discovered by the Celestial River Navy, and they have chased me all the way here. If you don't let me in, I'll die outside. Prince Yu Ming was unable to make a decision, and he looked towards the dragon Qilin. Brother, he said that he came to tip me off. If I don't let him inside, isn't he going to die out there? The dragon Qilin was up to no good as he replied. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace is incredibly important. If you can't protect it well and let it land in the hands of the enemy, even Deity Wu and Deity Xian would be implicated. We must be cautious. Let Son of Heaven Yin kill some of the soldiers of the Celestial Heavens army, to prove that he's not one of them. Prince Yu Ming praised. Brother is truly wiser. Brother Yin, if you're genuinely here to help me, then kill some of the gods and devils from the celestial heavens. Otherwise, it shows that you actually led them here to harm me. Son of Heaven Yin wore a dazed expression. This tortoise, when did he become smart? He turned his head to glance behind him. The Celestial River Navy had already arrived, and one of the leading generals at the front of the ship raised his knife and yelled out, Prince Yu Ming, His Majesty Celestial Emperor has sent a decree. He wants you to return to the Jade capital. Upon noticing that Son of Heaven Yin hadn't laid a hand on the Celestial River Navy, and that the Celestial River Navy didn't attack Son of Heaven Yin, Prince Yu Ming was instantly enraged, and he yelled out, Yin Chaojin, you're really trying to trick me into opening the Glassy Sky Pagoda to try and take over my Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. Son of Heaven Yin was upset and anxious. Suddenly, He grit his teeth hard and charged towards the celestial river navy, thinking to himself, if it wasn't due to there being so many precious artifacts in North Deity's residence, would I put myself in such danger? He suddenly unleashed a ruthless attack, and countless white banners flew out towards one of the navy's ships. With a shake of the banners, the primordial spirits of the gods and devils on board that ship were also shaken as they were dragged out of their bodies one after the other and enveloped within his banners. There were some stronger practitioners whose primordial spirits remained stabilized and didn't suffer the same fate. However, in the next moment, the gourd on Son of Heaven Yin's back opened up, and from its mouth countless insects flew out and swarmed onto the ship, sucking them all dry. Having succeeded in his attack, Son of Heaven Yin yelled out, "Dao brother Yu Ming, you have now witnessed my sincerity." Cries of rage could be heard from the surrounding ships, and the Celestial River Navy activated their formations. The Celestial River seemed to be almost boiling as countless formation runes flew up and locked down all four sides of the Celestial River. Swoosh! Countless divine weapons flew alongside those formation runes. Within the formation markings, the weapons struck together and heavily injured Son of Heaven Yin. Son of Heaven Yin spat out blood as he flew backward and collided into the barrier of the glassy sky pagoda. Prince Yuming was about to open up the barriers of the glassy sky pagoda to let him in when the dragon Qilin raised a hand. "Brother, won't you wait a little while more? What if it's a self-harming ruse?" Prince Yuming hesitated. At that precise instant, the Celestial River Navy unleashed their second attack. The formation of the Navy was incredibly powerful. Countless ships were sailing through the giant waves, and the various divine weapons became even more formidable when used together with the formation. Even Son of Heaven Yin's ancient primordial divine insects were almost all vanquished by the formation. Son of Heaven Yin conjured up his own Mingdu Heavenly Gate, which wasn't completely formed when the terrifying power of the formation crushed it into pieces. "Netherworld, see up!" With blood in his mouth, Son of Heaven Yin cried out shrilly, "Even though I may not be a celestial venerable, my reputation isn't undeserved." Whoosh! A boundless netherworld sea emerged from the void with violent waves surging. Within the sea, blood rays swept about as countless imposing corpses of gods and devils rose from it. They cried out with angry growls, prepared to fight the Celestial River Navy. Even though the current Son of Heaven Yin didn't have great achievements in his cultivation, one could already see the shadows of his future attainments through his paths, skills, and divine arts. He was highly adept in the great Tao of Yudu and had shocking attainments in the art of the soul. Regardless of whether it was the Netherworld Sea or the Mingdu Heavenly Gate, the Yudu knowledge required to execute them was extremely vast, and they even touched on the Tao of reincarnation. It could even be said that he had already surpassed the traditional great Tao of Yudu, and had great contributions towards its evolution. On board the massive Navy ships, the countless half-god generals revealed cold smiles as they raised their palms together and waved them down swiftly. Activate the sea-stabilizing divine needles. Dong dong dong. Countless massive iron pillars descended from the sky and pierced into the netherworld sea, instantly freezing it in place. The corpses of the gods and devils that were just emerging from the sea also immediately stopped their ascent and were crushed back into the depths. The netherworld sea was calm and peaceful, and nothing stirred in it anymore. Son of Heaven Yin coughed out blood and dropped to his knees. Just as he was about to plead for mercy towards the Celestial River Navy, a slit opened up in the barrier of the glassy sky pagoda as Prince Yuming reached out and pulled him inside. The dragon Qilin lamented, "Brother, we should have waited a bit more. If we had waited any longer, Brother Yin would be dead." Prince Yuming looked incredibly apologetic as he turned to Son of Heaven Yin with a red face. "I have wronged brother. I didn't expect brother to be so loyal and fearless, and to have such a righteous spirit that you would actually sacrifice yourself for my Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. I'm incredibly ashamed of myself." Son of Heaven Yin rolled his eyes at him weakly as fresh blood surged up into his mouth, and he almost lost consciousness from the blood loss. His netherworld sea, which he had cultivated painstakingly for the past tens of thousands of years, had been suppressed by the Celestial River Navy, and his Mingdu Heavenly Gate had also been crushed by them. It could be said that he had lost almost half of his most valuable assets. If I can't make some good profit off Black Tortoise's foolish son, then won't I have made great losses? Son of Heaven Yin gathered his spirits together, But his injuries were really too severe, so his aura was dispirited. Prince Yuming hurriedly supported him and introduced him to the Dragon Qilin and the others. This is Brother Dragon, these are the descendants of East Deity, and this is my cousin, the Princess of South Deity's family. Son of Heavenine stared at the Dragon Qilin and smiled coldly. Brother, your friends here don't even dare to give their real names. I fear there might be some trickery. Yenner was a little nervous. In the later generation, when Qin Mu visited North Deity, Prince Yuming had seen them before. However, he hadn't seen the Dragon Qilin in his human form, and in that period, Yenner had a good figure and wasn't as fat as she was at present. If they revealed their real names, then Prince Yuming would be able to recognize them in the later generation. The Dragon Qilin was, however, calm as he replied, Rumor has it that Son of Heaven Een is scheming and ruthless, and that he has a divine art that allows him to kill someone just by knowing their name. Thus, in front of Brother Een, I dare not reveal my real name. We are all distressed people from all over who are sharing a similar fate. There's no need for us to be acquaintances when we only met each other by chance. Well said. Prince Yuming clapped his hands together and praised as he laughed. Brother Een, you do have such a divine art, so it's not wrong that Brother Dragon is unwilling to reveal his real name. Yenner was full of admiration for the Dragon Qilin, and she looked towards him with a gaze full of respect. The Dragon Qilin felt quietly pleased with himself. After all, I've also followed Cult Master and read some books on poetry. It's a pity I don't have a tail now, or else I could give it a shake. Having suffered such a great blow, Son of Heaven Een was unable to recover in a short time period. Prince Yuming gathered all of Black Tortoise's descendants within the palace and asked the Dragon Qilin to deploy the troops. The Dragon Qilin said earnestly, deploying troops and setting up formations, I've learned some of it from an expert once, so I'll lay out the formations. Even if the 10 guards of the celestial heavens come down, they can forget about invading the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace, much less just the Celestial River Navy. Son of Heaven Een couldn't stop laughing as he waited to watch the Dragon Qilin make a fool of himself. The power of the Celestial River Navy's formation was incredibly frightening. This navy had a lot of people and ships. Its formation was designed according to the corporeal body structures of the ancient gods, and the Great Tao runes were designed by the formation experts of the celestial heavens. Even strong practitioners like Son of Heaven Een couldn't survive a single hit from the powerful formation of the Celestial River Navy. This guy with the surname Dragon, and the head of a Qilin would definitely lose with his nonsensical formation. Although the Dragon Qilin made an exaggerated promise, he was unnerved. He wasn't good at formations. Although he learned a lot from Qin Mu learned too many different things. While Qin Mu was good at every aspect, the Dragon Qilin was not. What do we do, Cult Master? He sneakily asked Qin Mu in the halo. Qin Mu roused his spirits and used his remaining consciousness to impart to him the ways to command the experts he had, and used the Glassy Sky Pagoda's power to its maximum potential. Although the Dragon Qilin knew little about the path of changing formations, he followed Qin Mu's orders and commanded the snake and turtle gods of the palace into the 28 heavens of the Glassy Sky Pagoda to form formations. This was to guard the treasures on the Glassy Sky Pagoda. The formation was capable of unleashing their power and had a steady defense too. Most crucially, the Glassy Sky Pagoda had a lot of treasures in it. The Dragon Qilin's formation was surprisingly able to adapt, according to the attributes of different treasures, to form different apt formations. The Glassy Sky Pagoda had thousands of treasures from the ancestral court, and the Dragon Qilin set up thousands of different formations. Prince Yuming was extremely impressed. Although Son of Heaven Een was displeased with the Dragon Qilin, he couldn't help but admire his talent when he saw how he set up the formation. Even he couldn't understand the principles and structure of the formation. When the Dragon Qilin finished, the Celestial River Navy attacked. Regardless of which direction they attacked, the Dragon Qilin would always command his troops with ease. He sent some gods to lay down formations every time, and it blocked the Celestial River Navy easily. The Glassy Sky Pagoda was extremely powerful. The people of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace weren't worthy opponents of the Celestial River Navy. However, when the Celestial River Navy entered the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace and went into the various heavens, they would see those powerful and terrifying treasures give off Tao markings that blasted towards them. Those incredibly terrifying pulses shot towards the ships, and immediately smashed them apart. The gods on them all died miserably. No one survived. The navy attacked multiple times, but despite their casualties, they failed to break through into the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. The admiral immediately adjusted his formation and attacked again. The dragon Qilin panicked, not knowing what to do. Take the 28 heaven canopies of the glassy sky pagoda and split every one of them into 360 heavenly cycle angles. Qin Mu's consciousness came to advise him. Turn the first heaven 8 degrees clockwise, the second heaven 3 degrees counterclockwise, and the third heaven 62 degrees clockwise. The dragon Qilin quickly moved under the glassy sky pagoda's pillar and bowed. However, he saw the heavens of the glassy sky pagoda rotate individually. The positions of the treasures inside it and the gods protecting it were moved as they each went in different directions. The formation of the Celestial River Navy's admiral targeted the defensive formations protecting each treasure. Such a sudden change in formation and treasure caused chaos for the Celestial River Navy and hence brought heavy casualties. The admiral attacked personally, so the dragon Qilin sent Prince Yuming to intercept him. Although Prince Yuming was honest and loyal, he was one of the few strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne realm. He also had deity Wu and deity Xian's bloodlines, which made him powerful in combat. He heavily injured the admiral after several rounds. The Celestial River Navy's ships swarmed to block Prince Yuming, and finally, they were able to get back their admiral. The dragon Qilin subtly sighed and thought, if Cult Master personally commanded the glassy sky pagoda, he would easily sink the entirety of the Celestial River Navy. After all, having to listen to Qin Mu's formation advice made him slower. Prince Yuming was very happy after his victory. You really are a wise man, dragon brother. Your abilities shocked the world. You are even qualified to be a heavenly master of the celestial heavens. The dragon Qilin humbled himself and said, this defeat may not get them to give up. It's only the navy blocking us for now. The other armies of the celestial heavens haven't arrived yet. We must not be complacent. Prince Yuming praised him a lot. Son of Heaven felt uncomfortable listening to him. Regardless, he was impressed by the extraordinary capabilities of this man with the head of a Qilin. He's under East deity? Strange, I haven't seen him before. Son of Heaven Yin's gaze flashed as he thought. East deity has several powerful princes and princesses. I recognize all of them and we have decent relationships. However, I haven't seen this fellow before. Considering his capabilities, he shouldn't be nameless in the Green Dragon Celestial Palace, yet he doesn't seem to have a reputation. East deity is a cunning fellow too. With the dragon Qilin controlling the glassy sky pagoda, Son of Heaven wasn't of much use, which he hated. This was because he had no chance of stealing the glassy sky pagoda. He was there for that treasure specifically. Prince Yuming was someone unguarded. North deity Xianwu rarely showed this treasure to outsiders, yet he brought many questionable friends to it many times. Hence, it was unsurprising that Yin Chaojin and Wei Suifeng desired it so much. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace continued north, yet the Celestial River Navy was on their tail. They didn't attack again, however. Instead, they just had several commanders advise Prince Yuming to stop and return to the celestial heavens. Suddenly, the navy split up, and a large army came in from the side. It went in front of the navy's formation, and powerful gods and devils examined the glassy sky pagoda's formations carefully. Prince Yuming's expression changed as he shouted and said, "The celestial heavens, 2 divine martial guards." The dragon Qilin instantly lost confidence. The 10 guards of the celestial heavens included the left and right feathered forest guards, left and right divine martial guards, left and right dragon martial guards, left and right divine stratagem guards, and left and right divine awe guards. They only selected the best talents for their troops. The minimum requirement to enter was to reach the Jade Capital Realm. They were Celestial Emperor's Imperial Guards. Wei Suifeng was a commander of the Feathered Forest Guards, but only the right Feathered Forest Guards. The right Feathered Forest Guards alone were enough to level a large nation or race in the Dragon Han era, such as Dragon Count Country. The power of the 2 divine martial guards was probably above that of the Celestial River Navy. Suddenly, war drums could be heard again as another large army cut through the Celestial River Navy's formation. It went to the front, stopped, and raised its flag. Prince Yuming looked at it and shouted, "The Northern Sect Army." The army commanded by the number 1 heavenly master. He's powerful and an expert in formations. The dragon Qilan's heart pounded as he sneakily looked at the halo behind Yennefer. Son of Heavenine saw it, and his heart fluttered. He also looked at the halo behind Yennefer's head, but he only saw an ancient tree in it and nothing else. Qinmu channeled his consciousness and said, "Dragon Pie, relax. The battle today will only cement your legacy in history." The dragon Qilan calmed himself down and said to Prince Yuming, "I see through the 2 divine martial guards and the northern sect army effortlessly, as if they were as clear as a blazing fire. To me they are selling away their lives. Victory will be swift." In the past, Prince Yuming and Son of Heavenine would have thought that he was merely bragging. However, the dragon Qilan broke the Celestial River Navy easily, forcing them to admit that he had such capabilities. The dragon Qilan couldn't help but proudly say, "No one knows a well-read man, but a person with talent will find a chance to unleash it. Today is my day." Prince Yuming praised. "You really are a worthy talent, brother. Enough to be called the number 1 heavenly master of the Dragon Han era." Yennefer's face was full of admiration for him. Even Son of Heavenine had to praise him, although bitterly. He thought, "After this fellow blocks the armies of the celestial heavens, I'll find a chance to steal the glassy sky pagoda." Celestial Emperor cut the world apart, allowing him to control the 4 poles of the 4 deities. With the 4 deities under the celestial heavens' control, they had no territories nor armies. They only had their descendants to guard their celestial palaces. The dragon Qilan was able to use the glassy sky pagoda, the snake gods, and the turtle gods of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to utterly defeat the Celestial River Navy, which rendered him a talented genius. This was because the 2 divine martial guards, the Northern Sect Army, and the Celestial River Navy combined had enough power to easily trample over all of the strong practitioners of the Emperor's throne realm in the world, let alone the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. He deserved the title of number 1 heavenly master if he could withstand their attacks. The 3 armies surrounded the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to halt its advance up north. However, it was difficult, for Prince Yuming was North Deity's son, and his cultivation had reached the Emperor's throne realm. Add to that the fact that North Deity was a saint born from the Celestial River, and how the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace was going north via the Celestial River while being protected by the Glassy Sky Pagoda, and it became nearly impossible for them to use ships to halt the Celestial Palace. Any ships that tried to block it would be pulverized by the Celestial Palace. Using chains to bind the Celestial Palace was impossible as well. The Glassy Sky Pagoda had plenty of powerful treasures. When they tried to hook the Celestial Palace with chains and hooks, the disciples of the Celestial Palace utilized the power of the treasures to break said chains. Although the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace wasn't fast, it was impossible to block it. A formation grandmaster is in charge of the Glassy Sky Pagoda. The number 1 heavenly master of the Northern Sect Army was Shang Pinying. He was a talent of the first year of the Dragon Han era too. However, he was overshadowed by the 9 celestial venerables. He had high attainments in algebra, which made him as formidable as Dao Ancestor, just not as famous. He was more skilled in formations, researching the corporeal body structures and great Dao runes of ancient gods and pioneering new formations. The armies of the celestial heavens cultivated his formations. He was the number 1 formation heavenly master of the Dragon Han era. It wasn't until the rise of Dao Ancestor's disciple, Yu Ting, that he was replaced. This was due to Yu Ting's extraordinary talent that surpassed even his. Shang Pinying moved to the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace and orbited it once to examine the formations. He gravely said, "The one setting the formations is extremely intelligent. Even I can't see through many of his formations. I would be pleased for the rest of my life if I was able to converse and exchange ideas with him. Could it be Prince Yuming? If so, he's really humble." He got excited and laughed, his blood boiling. "I'll control every army to break the formations and face off with this great formation expert." His clothes flew up as he passionately said, "The most beautiful language of this world is algebra. Formations made from algebra are the world's most majestic poems. I'll be satisfied for the rest of my life if I can use the most beautiful language and most majestic poems to meet a friend with algebra." He laughed and deployed the army's formations to attack the Glassy Sky Pagoda. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace's army was weak, for the disciples' cultivation realms were low. However, with the power of the number one treasure, the Glassy Sky Pagoda, even millions of gods and devils could hardly break in with force. Yet, to fully unleash its potential, an extremely intelligent person was needed. The Dragon Qilan followed Qin Mu's advice and immediately changed formations to break the opponent's formation with the formation. The number one heavenly master of the celestial heavens, Shang Pining, felt his blood boil. The battle was intense, and its outcome was up in the air. The battle made him feel like he had found a bosom friend. He controlled the Celestial River Navy, the Northern Sect Army, and the two Divine Martial Guards to break formations with formations. He pushed the formation moves of the Dragon Han era to the absolute limit. Yet, the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace was like a giant and incomparable algebra calculation spirit weapon. Every formation crisscrossed, moved, and constantly changed irregularly. The formation expert in the Celestial Palace seemed incredibly powerful and intelligent, for he blocked all of the formations that Shang Pining set up one by one, then broke them. The most powerful group in the armies of the celestial heavens was the 10 Guards. Any random god or devil in the 10 Guards could be a commander in any other army. Yet, even such a strong army suffered heavy casualties when attacking the Glassy Sky Pagoda. Shang Pining grew more excited and he became louder and louder. His brain calculated rapidly. He cared not for the casualties of the armies, for all he wanted to do was battle against the expert in the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to test their cultivations. The celestial river was dyed red by the corpses of countless gods and devils. It almost became a red river that flowed through the vast starry sky. This slaughter lasted from dawn until dusk and dusk until dawn. For several nights, Shang Pining remained excited, changing his formations and encouraging his armies to attack the Glassy Sky Pagoda. He was incredibly intelligent, and he broke through heaven after heaven in succession from the 1st to the 28th. He would soon break the Glassy Sky Pagoda's 28th heaven and attack the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. By then, the armies had lost more than half their men. The disciples of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace suffered heavy casualties too. The Dragon Qilan wasn't Qin Mu, so he was relatively slow despite being advised by Qin Mu. Yet Qin Mu's consciousness injuries were too serious. He was barely conscious, and thus the descendants of Black Tortoise inevitably fell and suffered. The drain on Qin Mu's consciousness was great as he used it to battle the number one heavenly master of the Dragon Han era, Shang Pining. His form became so bad that he ran the risk of having his consciousness obliterated. Even Prince Yuming was deployed by him. He repeatedly entered the formation to fight and take on the two Divine Martial Guards. He almost died to them multiple times. Dragon Pi, bring despair upon this number one heavenly master. Qin Mu's consciousness said, "Today I'll make you famous. Worship the Glassy Sky Pagoda and reverse the 28 heavens." The Dragon Qilan heard it, bowed to the Glassy Sky Pagoda, and saw the Glassy Sky Pagoda's 28 canopies retract before spreading out again. Shang Pining had broken through to the 28th heaven, and was about to reach the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. It was then that everything suddenly changed. Layer upon layer of heavens expanded outside, making the 28th heaven the first. The armies of the celestial heavens saw victory at hand before they suddenly returned to the outermost layer of the Glassy Sky Pagoda again. The interior heavens of the Glassy Sky Pagoda were guarded heavily by formations. The heavens they broke through with their lives were restored and made into killing formations. The morale of the Celestial River Navy, the two Divine Martial Guards, and the Northern Sect Army collapsed. They had no will to fight, for despair was all they felt. Work! Shang Pining's face suddenly became red, and he spat out fresh blood before dropping down to the surface of the river, kneeling. His hair turned white at a visible rate, and soon, his gray hair became white as if he entered his senior years. His Dao heart collapsed, and he never mentioned the idea of dueling that formation expert in the Celestial Palace again. He didn't want to fight anymore. He lifted his head and shouted, "Retreat!" Soldiers' cheers surrounded him as they retreated. Shang Pining spat out fresh blood by the mouthful as he kneeled there. He hoarsely asked, "Which expert was the formation master? May you appear and let me accept defeat wholeheartedly." The Dragon Qilan appeared. He stood outside of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace's doors, looked at him and said, "It was me." Shang Pining looked at the dragon Qilin. His injuries became worse as he stood up with a bitter smile. With snow-like white hair and an old voice he asked, "Sir, may I know your honored name?" Son of Heaven perked up his ears and prepared to write down the dragon Qilin's real name so that he could kill him. The dragon Qilin smiled and said, "I'm a secluded mountain person. I comprehended the meteorological signs and all sorts of algebra. I call myself Dragon Mountain Sanren." Dragon Mountain Sanren? Thanks for the lesson. Shang Pining bowed before running away haggardly. His voice came as if he was crying and ranting. "You're still a youth, you're still a youth. The title of #1 Heavenly Master belongs to you now." The dragon Qilin found it hard to hide his pride as he thought, "I'm now famous in the past. Yep, but I can't leave my name behind. If I did, this son of Heaven would definitely kill me brutally." However, the name Dragon Mountain Sanren is very loud and clear. He was proud, though he hated how he had no tail in his human form to shake and show off. That was his only regret. Qinmu used too much consciousness guiding him to defeat the Celestial Heaven's armies, and thus fainted once more. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace remained safe. Instead of putting it away, Prince Yuming allowed the Glassy Sky Pagoda to continue protecting the Celestial Palace. He went around treating the wounded and burying the dead. He got the Dragon Qilin, Yenner, and Son of Heaven to settle down at the Jade Capital temporarily. He treated them like precious guests. After a while, Prince Yuming finished his duties, and Son of Heaven recovered. Divine King Gongyun also finally quelled her chaotic consciousness, and thus had an easier time controlling her new body. She also fulfilled her promise of helping to treat Qinmu's consciousness injuries, after her own consciousness recovered. De Hong's powerful consciousness heavily injured you in the battle because your consciousness cultivation was inferior, not because your consciousness divine art was inferior. Divine King Gongyun observed Qinmu's consciousness while healing him. She shuddered as she said, perplexed, "Only masters of creation can have such attainments in consciousness. No post-celestial lifeforms can reach this level. Celestial Venerable Mu, your origin intrigues me." After her treatment, Qinmu woke up and looked better. He said, "I'm considered half-master of creation." Divine King Gongyun's gaze flashed. "Masters of creation are extinct here. Only some fled to the void to establish a new world. The Grand Emperor's body died. Mine too. Without our corporeal bodies, we are no longer masters of creation. In this universe, you are probably the only half-master of creation. Your origin is truly weird. Can you talk about it in detail?" Instead of answering directly, Qinmu said, "One day in the future, I'll go to the celestial heavens from the primordial realm. We will meet there again, and you'll understand everything." Divine King Gongyun changed the topic and said, "I separate my feuds and favors clearly. You saved me in the ancestral court and again in the celestial heavens. Thus you saved me twice. This treatment is me repaying you for the first favor. I'll repay you a second time, and then all will be clear." Qinmu said with gratitude, "Your consciousness is strong. You could have learned my secrets by using your consciousness, yet you didn't. Do the divine kings of the primordial era have gentleman codes of honor too?" "Who said only men can be gentlemen?" Gongyun coldly smiled and said, "I hate how men like you talk about such honor and loyalty, yet you lot steal and find prostitutes in a hypocritical manner. It's disgusting." Qinmu felt guilty. "I wasn't talking about you. I was unlucky to meet the Grand Emperor and Celestial Emperor Tai Chu." Gongyun healed him and said, "I'm leaving now. You used too much of your consciousness, so although you've recovered, your consciousness cultivation hasn't yet. Cultivate hard, and don't fight in such an intense manner until you've fully recovered. You might never recover if you do." Qinmu nodded and said, "What do you intend to do, Mr. Gong?" "You called me Mr. Gong?" Gongyun couldn't help but smile and ask, "Why did you call me Mr.?" Qinmu replied, "I call gentlemen Mr. You are one, so you deserve such a title." Gongyun shook her head and said, "I'm not really a gentleman. This corporeal body's attributes are bad. I might free her, but I'll wipe this part of her memory. I'll then find another person with great attributes to borrow and live with." She looked up at the galaxies beyond the celestial river and faintly said, "There are no masters of creation left here. I should give up on the glory of being one too and live. I was one of the 3 kings then, and after being reborn today, I'll be the strongest being in the world." She smiled and said, "If you meet a famous and powerful lady with the surname Gong, that'll be me. I'll abandon the past and embrace this era to become the brightest star in the dazzling group of stars in the night sky.
Farewell, celestial venerable Mu."
Her figure suddenly vanished. Qin Mu rose and walked out from the halo behind Yenner, but he couldn't find her. What a curious lady. The Grand Emperor wasn't worthy of her, and neither was Celestial Emperor, Qin Mu praised. Yenner cheerfully asked, "Have you recovered, Master?" Qin Mu smiled and said, "I'm fine. It's just that I can't use consciousness for now and must rest for a while, so try not to disturb me." "Where's Dragon Pie?" Yenner said. Fatty Dragon was pulled away by Prince Yuming in the name of celebrating victory. Fatty Dragon also said that Son of Heaven Een has an ulterior motive, wanting to steal the glassy sky pagoda. He'll probably strike during the parade. "Master." She looked at Qin Mu and was hesitant about continuing.
Vin Mu understood her.
He thought for a while before saying, "You two shall decide. Prince Yuming is honest, and honest people can't survive until the end of the Dragon Han era."
Yenner shuddered.
She walked out of the room, closed the door, and went to find the Dragon Qilin. She told him, "Master said that honest people can't survive until the end of the Dragon Han era." The Dragon Qilin spoke solemnly, saying, "I understand. Relax, I know what I'm doing." Yenner looked at him and suddenly said, "Fatty Dragon, when my mother reincarnates, can you go and propose marriage to her?" The Dragon Qilin was busy dealing with things concerning the parade. Upon hearing that, he panicked and blushed, even knocking over some plates. Yenner furiously said, "Do you dislike how I'm fat or how I'm ugly?" The Dragon Qilin hastily said, No, I was fat and ugly before. You're pretty regardless of your size. If you can't slim down, I'll be fat with you." Yenner became happy after that. "I'm just worried about Cult Master." The Dragon Qilin said with sorrow, "Cult Master isn't young anymore, but he hasn't started a family yet. Instead, I'm doing that before him. I'm scared that I'll care less about him because of that, and I can't really bear that. Although he's smart, he's worrisome too. I worry a lot about him." Yenner smiled and said, "We can live a good life first. Once he has witnessed our good life, he'll be jealous, and you might not have to worry about him anymore." "That's also true." They snuggled sweetly. Prince Yuming came, saw this and said, "What a lovely couple that makes people envious." It was just that he didn't know that the term D*net couple would be stuck with him for the next 600,000 years of suppression. He would use that term to scold them every time he thought about this lovely couple. The Black Tortoise Celestial Palace went north along with the Celestial River, moving further away from the celestial heavens. The starry sky flashed, and the Celestial Palace passed by the suns beside the Celestial River. Their light was bright and mesmerizing, and the scenery was as beautiful as a painting. The army of the celestial heavens left and didn't chase. The glassy sky pagoda was too eye-catching, so it was kept inside the numinous sky hall with people guarding it. The people in the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace celebrated again after honoring those that died. The stars and moons outside flashed, which, when combined with the glow of all sorts of treasures in the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace, created a neon-like scenery that mesmerized people. The laughter from the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace traveled to the Celestial River, and caused the Dragon Kings of the river to send out their armies to probe. Meanwhile, Prince Yuming was too naive, and Son of Heaven Een got him drunk. The Dragon Qilin and Yenner saw it, which alarmed them. They knew Son of Heaven Een would be striking out against the glassy sky pagoda soon. The celebration continued, and Prince Yuming got drunk on the table. Son of Heaven Een put Prince Yuming's elbow on his shoulder and walked out. As he left, he said drunkenly, "I'll send the prince to rest." The Dragon Qilin and Yenner stalked them quietly and saw how Son of Heaven Een pasted a paperman on Prince Yuming's back after escorting him away from the festivities. Son of Heaven Een let go of him and pasted another paperman on himself. Yet Prince Yuming didn't fall. Instead, he stood there all wobbly. When Son of Heaven Een lifted his hand, so did Prince Yuming. When Son of Heaven Yin put his hand down, so did Prince Yuming. When Son of Heaven Yin stepped forward, so did Prince Yuming. He Dao brother, you put the glassy sky pagoda in the numinous sky hall and ordered people to guard it. If I forced my way inside to steal it, wouldn't North Deity know that I was the thief? Son of Heaven Yin smiled and said, of course you have to give me the glassy sky pagoda personally. I'll escape with it and blame it on that Dragon Mountain Sanren and that lady. He cycled his heart and spirit and took down another paper man. He kneeled down to place it on the ground before blowing on it. On the ground, that small paper man walked forward, and Prince Yuming walked shakily towards the numinous sky hall. Son of Heaven Yin controlled the little paper man, who walked with Prince Yuming and acted like him, going all the way to the front of the hall. The gods guarding the glassy sky pagoda saw the prince and paid their respects. The paper man waved, and so did Prince Yuming. Son of Heaven Yin whispered to the paper man, I'll guard this place. Go and celebrate. I'll stay here and sober up. The paper man repeated after him, and Prince Yuming repeated what he said. The gods guarding the glassy sky pagoda were pleasantly shocked, and they saluted Prince Yuming before heading towards the festivities. The paper man walked forward, controlling Prince Yuming to enter. Son of Heaven Yin's heart pounded as he suppressed his excitement. He then had the paper man spread his arms and hug the glassy sky pagoda, which Prince Yuming did too. After a while, Prince Yuming walked out while wobbling with the glassy sky pagoda. Son of Heaven Yin was so happy that his heart almost jumped into his throat. Prince Yuming got closer to him, and at the same time, he suddenly felt two auras rapidly approaching. Son of Heaven Yin was shocked, and before he could react, he was flanked by two figures. He couldn't help but spit out fresh blood. The one on his left was the self-proclaimed 350 kilograms Princess of South Deity, and on his right was Dragon Mountain Sanren, but with 6 heavenly dragons on him. They were clearly numinous sky realm beings. The fat girl's cultivation was likely higher than that of Dragon Mountain Sanren and Son of Heaven Yin, as she knocked them both away. Son of Heaven Yin was at the peak of the numinous sky realm and had many tricks, but it was hard to reach the Emperor's throne realm, which left him stuck in the numinous sky realm. The Dragon Han era had lasted for 400,000 years thus far. There were less than 10 people that reached the Emperor's throne realm in the 600,000 years since Celestial Venerable you created the Celestial Palace realm. Son of Heaven Yin wasn't one of them. Even if that was the case, he couldn't bear being ambushed by 2 people, especially considering he hadn't recovered from his injuries even though his cultivation had somewhat recovered. That, along with the fact that his entire body was devoted to controlling Prince Yuming with the paperman trick, put him at a severe disadvantage. Besides, even if his injuries recovered and he was vigilant, he was no match for Yennefer. Yennefer had green dragon and vermilion bird bloodlines, and she was the female disciple of Celestial Venerable Yu. Also, she learned South Deity Vermilion Bird's paths, skills and divine arts, which made her capable. It was just that Yennefer disliked cultivation and didn't wholeheartedly comprehend said paths, skills and divine arts. This prevented her from breaking through to the Emperor's throne realm. The good thing was that she swallowed several terrifying ancient gods and digested them, which allowed her to be more powerful than before. When Son of Heaven Yin was knocked into the air, that fat girl came like a whirlwind, and the space around her was made into a mirror, which made him shudder. The surrounding space was like the surface of a mirror that reflected his figure. The mirror began to break, and his reflection inside the mirror broke too. Son of Heaven Yin saw how Celestial Venerable Yu schemed against Celestial Emperor's reincarnation, Chu Shao. Even he fractured under Celestial Venerable Yu's space path. This fat girl's space divine art seemed to be even better than Celestial Venerable Yu's. Son of Heaven Yin immediately felt his corporeal body and primordial spirit break with the mirror. He was about to have his soul dissipated. Dragon Mountain Sanren, I'll have you two pay the price eventually. Son of Heaven Yin hollered as his body sunk and fell to the ground. Devil aura rolled, and a dark devil flower grew from the earth and bloomed. Son of Heaven Yin's body fractured as he fell into the devilish aura. That devil flower bloomed completely. It was 3 to 5 feet tall and exploded forth as devil aura dissipated along with it. Yennefer caught up, but she only saw how the aura dissipated with no traces of Son of Heaven Yin's body. At the same time, the dragon Qilin rolled with the 6 heavenly dragons before stopping. Yenner was too powerful and he was knocked too far. Hollering came from afar. Their short confrontation likely alerted the others who were flying there to check. The dragon Qilin stood up aching and surprised. They rushed towards Prince Yuming, who was hugging the glassy sky pagoda while sleeping and drooling, the paper man still pasted to his back. Yenner tried to take the glassy sky pagoda out of his embrace, but he hugged it too tightly. The dragon Qilin took out the grand primordium divine stone he got from Qinmu and utilized what he learned regarding the great overarching supreme consciousness. He whispered, "Prince, there are soft cloud beds here. You like sleeping in the clouds. You're tired, very tired. You hug the clouds like a soft blanket." His consciousness burst forth as it invaded Prince Yuming's brain. Prince Yuming let go of the glassy sky pagoda and fell backward. Yenner held him and placed him on the ground gently. She took the glassy sky pagoda and said, "Let's go." Noises were everywhere as voices shouting the word thief surrounded them. The dragon Qilin's expression changed as he said, "We can't get away in time. This treasure is reliable. Get it to help us." Yenner shook the glassy sky pagoda and said, "Fog, wind and thunder." Thick and dense fog flooded out of the glassy sky pagoda and instantly covered the black tortoise celestial palace. Soon wind and thunder came to mask people's shouting. The dragon Qilin flew outside while dragging Yenner with him. With the help of the glassy sky pagoda, the dragon Qilin and Yenner quickly escaped from the black tortoise celestial palace with the 6 heavenly dragons. Looking back, the celestial palace was still enshrouded in the mist. The dragon Qilin and Yenner carried the glassy sky pagoda, kissing it as they skipped and danced in joy. The 6 heavenly dragons surrounded this number 1 treasure in the world, singing and dancing, looking unusually cheerful. Suddenly, the dragon Qilin stopped and said, "We seem to be short of one. Oh no, Cultmaster is still in the black tortoise celestial palace." Everyone looked at each other speechless. The 6 heavenly dragons repeatedly coughed as they looked around. They then started whistling. Yenner stamped her foot and said, "We only thought about beating up Son of Heavenine and stealing things and ended up forgetting that young master is still in the black tortoise celestial palace. Young master is even seriously injured and can't mobilize his consciousness. What should we do?" The dragon Qilin's expression wavered as he paced around. The purpose of stealing the glassy sky pagoda was because Cult Master was seriously injured, and thus we needed the magic of this treasure to protect us. Now that we have this treasure, we have lost Cult Master. The young heavenly dragon stopped his whistling and whispered, "Stop whistling, I'm about to pee." The whistling stopped. Everybody was motionless on the celestial river. Below their feet, a big black fish in the river swam past leisurely, making a strange howl. "Cultmaster will definitely be fine." The dragon Qilin looked in the direction of the black tortoise celestial palace and saw plenty of people running out of it and charging towards them. He immediately asserted, "Cultmaster has always been smart. All along, he has needed to take care of us instead of us taking care of him. Let's go first. Surely he'll be able to take care of himself." Yenner and the 6 heavenly dragons nodded their heads. Everyone then left hurriedly. "Have you given the dragon blood treasure tree to Cultmaster?" "Yep." "And there's a lantern on the tree?" "Yep." "That's good. If things take a turn for the worse, he can still put out the lantern and return to the ghost ship." In the guest room of the Jade capital city, Qinmu heard some commotion outside and was a little puzzled. What happened? Could it be that Long Pai and Yenner were here stealing the glassy sky pagoda? After some time, Qinmu said in bewilderment, "Why are Yenner and Long Pai still not back yet?" After a long time, Qinmu was finally sure. "These fellows, after they stole the glassy sky pagoda, they simply left me behind. Those 2 are heartless." He was unable to do anything to anyone now. If he ran out and was found, he would be caught as a thief and wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Prince Yuming finally woke up from his hangover and was stunned when he discovered that the glassy sky pagoda was missing. He cried out, "Who stole it?" When he heard that the culprits were Dragon Mountain Sanrin and a princess from South Deity's family, he was even more shocked and was quiet for a long time. He finally recovered his senses and said, "Tell our people to stop their pursuit and return to the Celestial Palace. Although the glassy sky pagoda is a good treasure, the lives of our people are more important. We will immediately return to the North Pole." There can't be any more delays. As his people returned to the Celestial Palace, Prince Yuming stabilized his Tao heart and fully focused on driving the Celestial Palace along the Celestial River back to the North Pole. It was just that his parents had spent their entire lives forging the glassy sky pagoda. When he thought of it, he couldn't help but feel a terrible pain in his heart. That D*net couple. Prince Yuming cursed in rage. Qin Mu carefully adjusted the light and stayed in place. He continued to mobilize his Overlord Body 3 elixir technique, relying on the Grand Primordium Origin Stone to help him recover to his peak condition as soon as possible. During this period, several flying serpent goddesses came to clean the room. Qin Mu had no choice but to use his consciousness to hide from them. However, during the night, the guest room was lit up, causing many to take notice. Only, when they entered the room to check, they were unable to find anything or determine where the light came from. As a result, many were spooked. Gradually, news about the haunted guest room spread among the people. After 10 or so days, Qin Mu finally felt that his consciousness had stabilized, and the primordial liquid in his body had almost been depleted. He looked inward at his corporeal body and saw that the muscles of his reborn corporeal body were like jade, his blood a rich red. Both his qi and blood were flourishing. When he moved gently, his body glowed everywhere as nearly 2,000 ancient god apparitions emerged, their Tao rhythm revolving around. Big Senior Brother's horizons and knowledge are extraordinary. He used so much primordial liquid to reconstruct my corporeal body, improving it significantly. He was delighted. He's indeed my big senior brother, truly old and experienced. His horizons and knowledge are much higher than mine. During my daily cultivation, I only dare to use a drop of primordial liquid at most. He, however, used one entire cauldron of liquid to reconstruct my corporeal body. Qin Mu took a look at this spirit embryo divine treasure, and saw that the reconstructed sun, moon, and stars were brighter than before. The sky was like a mirror as countless stars dazzled across it. Yudu was dim and gloomy, making it difficult to gauge its depth. Each of his celestial palaces was new and shiny, with leisurely Tao rhythm resonating from them. The various Tao rhythms gathered together, seeming like they were trying to form a great Tao melody with thousands of Tao marvels in it. Big Senior Brother is indeed knowledgeable. Qin Mu praised him again in his heart. After he endured this calamity, his spirit embryo divine treasure was actually much bigger than before. It once again expanded outwards, and the surge of his vital qi was like a blazing fire sweeping across a plain or a giant flood engulfing the heavens and earth, vigorous and copious. His consciousness didn't increase much but was more tenacious than before. Qin Mu gave a sigh of relief and stood up. He retracted his consciousness that was deposited in the dragon blood treasure tree, and moved beside the window, opening it to take a look outside. It was daylight. His consciousness rippled, pulling the dragon blood treasure tree and the lantern into the heart of his brows, storing them in the Qin word land. He then opened the door and walked outside, thinking to himself, after the death of Celestial Emperor, the Celestial Venerables will fight over his corporeal body. I need to go and take a look. I also need to meet Celestial Venerable Yun. He quietly left the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace and came to the top of the Celestial River. Suddenly he saw the rapid currents beneath the Celestial Palace. A dragon-headed black turtle was carrying the palace, moving up north along the river. Qin Mu laughed heartily and said in a loud voice, "Prince Yuming, do you recognize Mu Qing?" The black turtle was indeed Prince Yuming. As he had lost his treasure, he took the initiative to punish himself by carrying the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace to the North Pole. When he heard those words, he quickly slowed down and cried, "Mu Qing! Is it Celestial Venerable Mu?" Qin Mu smiled and nodded. "That's right. I was being pursued by my enemy, and had to temporarily seek shelter in your treasure residence to avoid him and recover from my injuries. Please accept my apologies for not informing you." Prince Yuming hurriedly said, "Celestial Venerable, please don't blame yourself. Come to think of it, I have to call you Master. If you hadn't imparted your way to become a god to me, I wouldn't be where I am today. Celestial Venerable, if you could allow me to transform, let's meet in the Celestial Palace. I'll order my men to receive you with hospitality." When Qin Wu saw how considerate and warm-hearted he was, he shook his head. My enemy is extremely powerful. Hence, I can't reveal myself in your Black Tortoise Celestial Palace. I don't want to implicate you. Prince Yuming probed. May I ask, who is Celestial Venerable's enemy? The Grand Emperor. Qin Mu's expression was a little grim as he said solemnly, You may not have heard of him. However, when you're back with North Deity, they will explain to you the origin of the Grand Emperor. Prince Yuming hesitated a while and said, Celestial Venerable, I have lost my family's treasure. I would like to request that Celestial Venerable stay for a few days more, and put in a good word for me in front of my parents so that I won't get punished.
Qin Mu smiled ambiguously.
Prince, I would be bringing you and the North Deity couple harm if I stayed. As for your punishment for losing the treasure, I'll plead for you the next time we meet. Prince Yuming didn't dare to hold him up. He sent him out of the Black Tortoise Celestial Palace, waving as he watched him leave. Celestial Venerable, you must not forget to plead for me.
Heaven han celestial heavens.
Celestial Venerable Yun sat down and let out a long sigh of relief as a youth with a childish appearance came forward to offer tea. Master, is Celestial Emperor dead? Celestial Venerable Yun took a sip of the tea and gave off another long sigh of relief. He then put down the teacup and said, He's finally dead. Weisu, the killing of Celestial Emperor was a very important matter. I was unable to leak out any details earlier, so I didn't tell you about it. The youth smiled. I know. For matters like this, the fewer people who know the better. In order to achieve great things, one has to control his mouth. Master, in this trip to the celestial heavens, whose hands did the corporeal body of Celestial Emperor fall into? No one could control his corporeal body fully. We ended up suppressing each other and bickering with each other. Celestial Venerable Yun took another sip of tea and said, Hence, each of us left one stream of our vital essence in Celestial Emperor's corporeal body. That way we can control his body together. This may be the best outcome. Although the feud between us and the half-gods ran deep, it started with the ancient gods. The ancient gods are the source of all disasters, and Celestial Emperor was behind all of this. Now that he's dead, I have discussed it with Celestial Venerable Hao, and we will have the celestial heavens leave the primordial realm so that the ancient gods can't easily descend to the lower bound. In this way, the ancient gods will be unable to disturb the people in the primordial realm. What about Earth Count? That youth raised his eyebrows and said, What about Mother Earth? And Heaven Duke? These ancient gods also have to die. Master, now that you have gotten rid of the ancient Celestial Emperor, you have lost much of your drive. We should follow up on this victory with another attack by joining forces with Celestial Venerable Hao, controlling the ancient Celestial Emperor to kill Mother Earth, Earth Count, and Heaven Duke. Celestial Venerable Yun frowned slightly and said, It's not Heaven Duke, Earth Count, or Mother Earth who brought disaster to the primordial realm. It was the gods under Celestial Emperor. Heaven Duke controls Xuandu, the sun, moon, stars, and constellations, and he didn't do anything wrong. Earth Count controls Yudu and the place of the dead, and he hasn't done anything wrong. Although Mother Earth is proud, she has taken good care of all beings in the primordial realm over the years, and she didn't do anything wrong. Why kill them? The youth still wanted to say more, but Celestial Venerable Yun smiled and said, Also, thanks to these three existences, we could defeat Celestial Emperor. Otherwise, the situation following the death of Celestial Emperor wouldn't be so peaceful and uneventful. The youth's face turned red as he raised his voice. Master, Celestial Emperor is dead. We can fool the people of the world, but we can't hide it from Heaven Duke, Earth Count, and Mother Earth. These three giants covet the power and authority of Celestial Emperor, and are bound to rebel. We will regret it in the future if we don't kill them now. Master wants to unify the universe and become the ruler of heaven and earth. Xiao Weisu, you're being imprudent. Celestial Venerable Yun slapped the table and yelled, That's enough. My purpose is only to help the human race survive, not for my own power. Heaven Duke, Earth Count, and Mother Earth, each has their own duties. Not only did they not do anything wrong, but they have made contributions. How can we kill innocent people? Think about it yourself. The youth Xiao Weisu lowered his head in acknowledgement. He then stood up to leave. Celestial Venerable Ling happened to walk over, and Xiao Weisu hurriedly bowed. Senior Aunt Ling. Celestial Venerable Ling waved her hand, and Xiao Weisu left. Celestial Venerable Ling watched as he walked off. Only then did she enter the hall. Another quarrel with Xiao? This disciple is too extreme. Celestial Venerable Yun had a headache and rubbed his temples. He actually wants to eliminate all of the ancient gods, including Heaven Duke, Mother Earth and Earth Count. Have they ever been evil? On the contrary, they manage the order of thousands of worlds and heavens. If they die, the movement of stars will become disorderly, evil spirits will be everywhere with ghosts running rampantly, and the heavens will bring about the death of people and the extinction of animals. It would be a major disaster. I don't like Xiao Weisu, Celestial Venerable Ling said. He's too arrogant and gives people a feeling that he's unreliable. Celestial Venerable Yun laughed. However, given his aptitude, he's a genius among the human race rarely seen in hundreds of thousands of years. After all, humans don't have any god or devil bloodlines, and will need a young generation of strong practitioners. Xiao Weisu is the leader among them. His achievements in the future won't be inferior to us. Celestial Venerable Ling thought for a while, then said, "You are the emperor, and this is your matter to ponder about. I came to you for another thing. Now that the matter of Celestial Emperor has been resolved, the four deities have returned to the four extreme heavens. Apart from Heaven Duke, Earth Count and Mother Earth, we don't have to worry about the rest of the ancient gods. Our greatest enemy is no longer the ancient gods, it's the half-gods." Celestial Venerable Yun said, "I understand." Celestial Venerable Ling said, "The power of half-gods is greater than humans. Even outstanding human talents like Son of Heaven Een and Celestial Venerable Hor are actually helping the half-gods. If they help us, together with Celestial Venerable Yu, we should, at the very least, match up to the half-gods." Celestial Venerable Yu nodded and said, "I understand that, but Celestial Venerable Hua doesn't." He sighed again. Celestial Venerable Hua has his own way of thinking. In his heart, our victory this time around wasn't due to our own power, but the power of Celestial Venerable Hao. He had a forlorn look that was difficult to dispel. Celestial Venerable Hua believes that we relied on the strength of the Empress Sisters to eradicate Celestial Emperor. In addition, the relationship between the Empress Sisters and Celestial Venerable Hao is close. The half-gods have quite a few more powerful existences than humans do, like God King Su, the daughter of Earth Count, Ancestral God King, the son of Heaven Duke, and God Emperor Lang Xian. A prudent bird selects its tree. I don't blame him for his decision. Celestial Venerable Ling frowned and said, "What about Celestial Venerable Yu? Could we persuade him?" Celestial Venerable Yun shook his head. "There's only one person who could persuade him, and he's dead." Celestial Venerable Ling was silent. The only person that Celestial Venerable Yu respected in this world was Celestial Venerable Yu. However, he had been dead for 400,000 years. Celestial Venerable Hao and the rest have already penetrated the Heaven Alliance. Celestial Venerable Ling said, "Even as someone who isn't very sensitive to the outside world, I'm able to feel the sinister undercurrent in the Heaven Alliance. When we first established the Heaven Alliance, we never expected that it would slowly be swallowed up by others." "I know." Celestial Venerable Yun revealed a smile and consoled her, saying, "Don't worry. I understand the road ahead is difficult, but there's me around." Celestial Venerable Ling put her heart at ease after hearing his words. "I have always devoted myself to my research and rarely care about the outside world. If you encounter difficulties, feel free to voice them out. Sister Yu and I will definitely support you to the best of our abilities." Celestial Venerable Yun laughed. "You just focus on researching your divine art, and don't bother with these troublesome things. I'm looking forward to your unchanging divine art." He laughed heartily. "After your divine art is completed, I must be the first to enter it. Traveling through the ages, meeting the heroes of each era," he said with surging heroism. "I want to go to the first year of the Dragon Han era and visit Celestial Venerable Yu. I didn't have the chance to explore paths, skills, and divine arts with him when he was alive. I must make use of this opportunity. I want to go to the future to see Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu. The two of them must be from the future. I have to visit them to see how they are getting on. I also want to witness the divine arts of the future, and go to the past to make up for my regrets." He excitedly paced around, clapping his hands as he said, "I feel that I have so many things I want to do." Celestial Venerable Ling laughed. "It's still in the early days. I have just tested the ghost ship successfully. I don't even know where it has transmigrated." Celestial Venerable Yun said encouragingly, "When there's a first time, there will be a second time. You'll definitely succeed." Celestial Venerable Ling was very happy. The first time she was acknowledged was when Qin Mu and Qin Yi traveled back from the future. When everyone else didn't agree with her, the two supported her and even accompanied her to study the art of creation and unchanging substance. The second time she was acknowledged was when Qin Mu returned to the past, displaying her hairpin to her. And the third time was when Celestial Venerable Yun allowed her to help Mistress Yuan Mu bury the secrets of the feathered forest guards and the ghost ship in history. Now was the fourth time. Since the first year of the Dragon Han until now, in 400,000 years, there had been 4 acknowledgements. This made her smile like an innocent little girl who had finally received her long-awaited prize. Chapter 1090. When brave warriors become evil dragons. Qin Mu held the lantern and followed the current up the celestial river. He created a dragon through visualization, which carried him as it galloped on the water surface, his clothes fluttering in the wind. He was wearing the robes of Wei Suifeng. Wei Suifeng was the emperor of endless clouds after all, so the robe was a treasure. As it fluttered in the wind, it made him feel weightless and carefree. There were many thoughts in Qin Mu's head. It was now 400,000 years into the Dragon Han era, and there was still another 100,000 years to go before the end of the era. By then, Celestial Venerable Yun would die, and Celestial Venerable Yu would end up living quietly in seclusion, leaving only Celestial Venerable Ling to support everything. The 10 Celestial Venerables would rise, and the brutal history would continue into the Crimson Light era and High Emperor era until Celestial Venerable Ling was killed in the Celestial River. He had too many things he wanted to change. However, after this transmigration, he was only left with 2 more chances. In this era, there were still plenty of regrettable things happening, and many more secrets for him to discover. However, he couldn't possibly use his 2 remaining chances entirely on the Dragon Han era. As Wei Suifeng said, he could leave behind 2 opportunities to do something more meaningful. This would be the last time he returned to the Dragon Han era. He really wanted to meet Celestial Venerable Yun before he returned to the ghost ship, to have a long chat with him, to acknowledge him as a Tao friend, and to talk about each other's aspirations. He wanted to talk merrily with him over wine and drink to their heart's content. He also wanted to listen to Celestial Venerable Yun's views of the future, and his opinions of the past. It was rare to have a bosom friend in life, except that his bosom friend lived in the past while he lived in the future. In the future, Celestial Venerable Hao Lang Xian Su, the Grand Emperor, Ancestral God King, Celestial Venerable Hua, Yuan Mu, Celestial Empress, and even the reincarnated ancient Celestial Emperor will gradually gain power and colluded to plot against Celestial Venerable Yun. He'll die in the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. He quietly thought in his heart. His bloodline will be cursed by the Grand Emperor and won't live until they become gods. His soul will be sealed by the Grand Emperor as well, forever trapped in the ultimate void of the great overarching consciousness heaven. His corpse will be sent to the great void by the Grand Emperor, being sealed within his corporeal body as his spoils of war. Tao friend, the pain and suffering waiting for you are simply too much. And what awaits the human race will be the same as well. You have carried the burden for the distant ancient era, and in the future, I'll take that over from you. Qin Mu cast away the thoughts in his head. The celestial heavens were still far away, and would require another 10 days of walking. Qin Mu let go of the lantern in his hand. Under the control of his vital qi, it floated beside him as he continued with his journey. He took out the egg of Taisher. It was emitting a deep humming Tao voice, making it seem as if an ancient god was whispering. Qin Mu listened to the sound, trying to determine its marvels. The yin and yang hadn't been split yet for the Tao of Taisher, and neither did it have any substance. In order to save Celestial Venerable Ling, he needed to figure out the Tao of Taisher. The egg of Taisher continued to emit that sound, and it was as though an unborn ancient god was talking to him. However, Qin Mu was unable to understand those obscure words. Solving the Tao of Taisher is no more difficult than creating the unchanging divine art from scratch. If Celestial Venerable Ling can create such an earth-shaking divine art, I can also solve the mysteries and marvels of the Tao of Tai Shi. He stood on the head of the dragon he had visualized and closed his eyes. He then entered his dream. In his dream, millions of dainty Qin Mu surrounded the egg of Tai Shi, listening to the Tao voice coming from it, trying to record down the mysteries and marvels of the Tao voice in the way of the runes of great Tao. Maha! A dainty Qin Mu supported his chin as he licked his brush. His face was covered with patches of ink. Yegu! The small Qin Mu on the other side was so excited that he moved his brush quickly, recording down the great Tao in the shape of the runes that he just comprehended. Unknowingly, 10 days had passed. Qin Mu woke up from the dream and could see the celestial heavens in front of him, so he put away the egg of Tai Shi. The egg of Tai Shi was a significant matter, and he couldn't let anyone know that this ancient god egg was in his hands. In the past few days he used entering the path through dreams to sort out 5 runes of Tai Shi. However, as the Tao of Tai Shi was opaque and unclear, he was unable to verify whether the 5 runes were right or wrong. I need to find Celestial Venerable Ling's notes that were hidden by Big Senior Brother, and try to comprehend her divine arts. Afterward, I'll compare that to the 5 runes I comprehended to verify if they are correct. Qin Mu had a big headache. Big Senior Brother isn't a squirrel. Why does he like to hide things so much? Verifying the 5 runes of Tai Shi was extremely important. If one of them turned out to be correct, he could use it to slowly deduce more runes. The first step was always the hardest. From nothing, as long as he could establish one, it would be the most important part of the solution. Once there was one, there would be the second, third, fourth, fifth, and so on. The celestial heavens were near. So Qin Mu changed his appearance to that of a half-god, and infiltrated the celestial heavens. Now the celestial heavens had completely lost the bustle of the early Dragon Han era. The 36 celestial palaces had already left the celestial heavens, flying to all parts of the universe. Many of the 72 throne halls had left as well. The 36 celestial palaces and 72 throne halls formed the celestial heavens. Together with the Jade Capital City, Celestial Street, and Heavenly Market, they constituted the main body of the celestial heavens. Today, the absence of so many celestial palaces and throne halls made the celestial heavens seem like it had fallen into a disastrous state. Moreover, the departure of these celestial palaces and throne halls also took away a good portion of the great army of the celestial heavens. When the celestial heavens sent troops to stop them, a great battle of gods and devils erupted, causing panic to the people in the celestial heavens. When Qin Mu passed by the Jade Capital City, he saw Great Sun Sovereign in the distance, looking like a dazed bird and crouching on the tower of the Jade Capital City. He looked stiff and dispirited. After a long time he patted his wings, but he didn't know where to go. I'm afraid it's not too far away from the day that Great Sun Sovereign got struck with the arrow in his back, Qin Mu thought. He searched everywhere in the celestial heavens, but still couldn't find the dragon Qilin and Yenner. He didn't know where they and the 6 heavenly dragons hid after they stole the glassy sky pagoda. Most likely, they put out the lantern and returned to the ghost ship. Qin Mu walked out of the southern heavenly gate. There was probably a fierce battle there, considering the gate was broken. Many heavenly workers were in the midst of repairing it. He descended along the celestial river and looked back. The celestial heavens had already risen high up in the sky of the primordial realm, and it was only a matter of time before it left. At this time, a violent tremor traveled from the primordial realm. Qin Mu followed the shockwave and saw many half-gods with their arms raised high, holding a humongous celestial palace, as they flew towards the celestial heavens. Those half-gods were full of joy, looking very excited. The celestial palace was God Emperor Lang Xian's celestial palace, and those half-gods were his subordinates. They were in high spirits as they moved the Lang Xian divine palace into the celestial heavens. There was a power vacuum after the departure of so many ancient gods, making now a good time to seize power. No wonder Great Sun Sovereign was looking so desolate. The era of ancient gods has ended, while the era of half-gods has arrived. Qin Mu watched the celestial palace rise higher and higher. He then turned back and continued towards the Heaven Han celestial heavens. He thought, in this world, the conflict between the ancient gods and the post-celestials isn't the main thing anymore. Instead, It's now replaced by the conflict between the half-gods and the post-celestials. This is precisely the reason behind the rise of the Crimson Light era. On his way to the Heaven Han celestial heavens, he saw several celestial palaces held up by excited half-gods, flying towards the celestial heavens. He couldn't help but shake his head. Although the ancient celestial emperor was dead and the era of ancient gods was over, the half-gods had become the new ancient gods. Back then, the half-gods were also the leaders of the Dragon Han Revolution and were even more radical than the celestial venerables of the human race. Now they had replaced the ancient gods, becoming the new rulers. Qin Mu lowered his head and looked at the calm surface of the celestial river, seeing his own reflection. He gazed at his reflection in the celestial river, and it gazed back at him. The cheerful laughter of the half-gods traveled over. The brave warriors that slew the evil dragons had finally grown sharp claws and teeth, becoming the evil dragons themselves. Qin Mu once again took on Mu Qing's appearance, then quickened his pace as he walked on the celestial river. When the Dragon Han era was at its most magnificent, it began to go downhill. He looked down and saw that in many of the kingdoms of gods in the primordial realm, the powerful half-gods had already toppled the statues of ancient gods. Those giant statues were symbols of the ancient gods' authority and power, and were tall and majestic. Some were carved out of entire divine mountains, while some were collected from divine metal and iron, looking extremely extravagant. In previous years, it was often the common people who came forth to worship and pray. They offered treasures and children, worshipping the high and mighty ancient gods who had power over them. They prayed for good weather and for heaven not to bring disasters upon them. Now that the ancient gods were gone, there was a power vacuum within the celestial heavens. The half-gods took the opportunity to rise up and seize power. The ancient gods had become old gods, and thus their statues would need to be toppled, and their sacrificial altars smashed. However, Qin Mu saw that after the powerful half-gods broke the statues and altars of the ancient gods, they enslaved common people to work laboriously to build new sacrificial altars over where the old ones stood. Gigantic half-god statues were erected on top of the new sacrificial altars. Unknowingly, Qin Mu walked down the celestial river, getting closer and closer to the mortal realm. As he looked at it, he saw scenes of broken old gods and newly erected new gods. The common people continued to be enslaved, their lives still a living hell. Those new gods who held power now were in high spirits, celebrating their victory and ascension. They enjoyed the beauties and delicacies presented by the common people, while being surrounded by mountains of various treasures. They were drinking to their heart's content at their extravagant feast, laughing heartily and feeling extremely happy. At the feet of their giant bodies, there were tens of thousands of ordinary men and women, who were trembling and burying their heads, repeatedly kowtowing until their heads bled. Ah, this is the mortal realm. Qin Mu only came to his senses at that moment. In the past, when he walked on the celestial river, he was too high and too far to see the people of the primordial realm. Ah, this was the mortal realm. He had just realized this. Indeed, this was the mortal realm. The people hadn't broken the gods in their hearts and temples. They hadn't broken the high and mighty new gods and old gods. When power had been let out of the cage, it was very difficult to put it back in again. When servility was being brought out, it was very difficult to straighten those bent backs and knees again. They had gotten rid of Celestial Emperor and overthrown the rule of the ancient gods, so why had the lives of the people not changed? Why were they still as stupefied as before? Why did the old gods leave the world only to be replaced by a new group of gods? Shouldn't it all change? This Dragon Han Revolution, did it have nothing to do with mortals? Yes, this Dragon Han Revolution is far from being successful. What it got rid of were Celestial Emperor and the ancient gods. It only removed the original ruling class and replaced it with a batch of new rulers. The Dragon Han Revolution was fake, a mere illusion. He looked a little dazed and muttered, "Celestial Venerable Yun, did you see it? Don't live too high or too far, or else you won't see the sufferings of the people. You'll lose the motivation to move forward and forget your original aspirations and intentions." He walked between the majestic divine mountains of the primordial realm, watching the half-gods celebrating wildly, watching the common people enduring the same hardships as before. From Dragon Han to Crimson Light, from High Emperor to Founding Emperor, then to Eternal Peace, The goal of generations of compassionate and upright people wasn't personal power and status, nor was it personal desires and wealth. It was a simple and pure belief and desire to break the gods in one's hearts and in the temples. Darkness fell as the night sky covered the entire primordial realm. His emotions were roused as he walked in the night with his lantern. He had all sorts of strange feelings in his heart, rising and falling like the waves of the celestial river. He looked like a traveler who walked into the dark history of the distant ancient era with a lantern, searching in the dark for the footprints left behind by his predecessors, looking for their spirit that resembled candlelight in the darkness. That was a type of spirit that was imprinted in the bloodline of ordinary folks. It was simple but arousing. When people felt it, it filled their eyes with warm tears and made their blood boil. That simple spirit of theirs was deeply imprinted in the dark sky of history. When future travelers walked into the dark history with lanterns, the light would illuminate the darkness. Their spirit would be like countless shining stars, inspiring the later generations. Qin Mu didn't stop walking as the long roar of an ancient god traveled from the darkness. The divine mountains in the distance looked like giant beasts lying prone in the dark. From the darkness, a half-god seemed to have discovered him and cried out, "Celestial Venerable Mu." Qin Mu was stunned. Only then did he realize he was still wearing the face of Mu Qing. He avoided the half-gods who were trying to hunt him, changing his form and making himself look like a half-god. He walked from night to dawn, from day to night again, gradually nearing the territories of the human race. Early one morning, he came to the territories of the human race in the Dragon Han era. The sun poured down, shining on his worn and weary face. He revealed a smile as he saw people cultivating the farmland. In the village not far away, there were divine arts practitioners teaching children how to open the divine treasures to become warriors. In the distance there were human cities. The hard-working merchants were already embarking on their journeys, planning to head towards the nearby cities of other post-celestial races to trade. It was a peaceful place. There was smoke rising from the village as people lived in prosperity and contentment. Qin Mu put away the lantern, smiling as he walked towards the rising sun. Suddenly the sky shook violently. People looked up in panic, staring blankly at the sky. Qin Mu looked up and saw the sloping celestial river looking like a huge white python hanging in the sky, shaking violently as it fell towards the primordial realm. The geographical flow of the celestial river has changed. Qin Mu was at a loss. The celestial river originally flowed from Xuandu to the four extreme heavens, and then from the east pole towards the primordial realm. After passing through the celestial heavens, it entered the sky of the primordial realm. The tributaries of the river ran through many heavens of the primordial realm, flowing out of these heavens to come together. This big river that ran through the universe drifted through the sky in the primordial realm, transforming into the ghost river as it cut through Yudu, and pouring into the ruins of End. And now, as the celestial heavens rose in the air, it changed the flow of the celestial river. The celestial river fell from the sky and was about to crash into the ground. The celestial river flowing on the ground was the surging river of the future. However, the fall of the celestial river might bring about catastrophic disasters to the people living there. A flood that engulfed heaven and earth would destroy everything there. Without thinking, Qin Mu gave out a roar as his corporeal body expanded, transforming into his three-headed, six-armed form, his gigantic body covered with muscles. He leaped into the air, charging towards the falling celestial river. Boom! The celestial river fell on him, its boundless power pressing on his shoulder. Qin Mu's vital qi radiated as it engulfed thousands of miles of the celestial river. He was trying his best to prevent the river from falling. However, the celestial river that was confined between heaven and earth had already lost its shackles. As all its weight crashed down, it pressed upon him until his bones cracked, contorting his spine and steadily pushing his body downwards. Qin Mu roared with all his might. The muscles under his skin swelled, his big tendons becoming tighter. His 6 arms held up the celestial river, like a giant carrying a blue sky, his skin being blown off bit by bit. Suddenly, from the human territories, gods from the human race rushed to the sky, each holding up a section of the celestial river. The image of their rising bodies looked like beams of light. The pressure on Qin Mu was greatly weakened. Despite the help from the gods of the human race, It was still difficult to support the weight of the celestial river. This big river continued to push them steadily downwards. Finally, Qin Mu's feet touched the ground, sinking deep into it. He looked at those who were stunned by the scene and cried, "Quick, run!" People escaped with their families as the human divine arts practitioners used their divine arts to move people who couldn't. The celestial river fell, and human gods used their bodies to lift it up. Some couldn't hold it up and were pulverized, so new gods came to lift it with their shoulders to provide an opportunity for people below to escape. The gods of the Heaven Han celestial heavens flew out and flew up and down the river. Celestial Venerable Yun, Celestial Venerable Yu, and Celestial Venerable Ling led the gods to do whatever they could to lift the celestial river and halt the torrential flood. Their cultivations were powerful, but they could only delay the fall, not put it back into the sky. Constantly, gods were crushed to death. Even celestial venerables couldn't withstand the heavy pressure of the celestial river. Celestial Venerable Yun and the others did all they could to allow people to have more time to escape. Somebody needs to dig out a canal. Celestial Venerable Yun hollered. You're skilled in spatial divine arts. You will dig a canal. As long as you do so and put stretches of the celestial river in it, we don't have to worry about flooding. Celestial Venerable, you put down the celestial river, and with its pressure everyone else's shoulders sunk. Celestial Venerable, you used her divine arts to fracture the earth and dig out a canal hundreds of miles wide to the east. The gods immediately began to put the celestial river into the canal. The water instantly became more gentle as it flowed to the east sea along the canal. The gods who put the celestial river down rushed north to help other gods. Celestial Venerable, you worked hard, splitting open the mountains blocking the celestial river. A river was carved out of the land, and the canal grew in length. Even though she was a celestial venerable in the emperor's throne realm, she got tired and had to rest as well. Her disciples took over, and some even collapsed out of exhaustion. After a dozen days they finished half of it. Sections of the celestial river were put into it as it flowed along the canal. What about upstream? Celestial Venerable, you asked during her break time. Which celestial venerable is holding up the section upstream? Celestial Venerable Yun looked at Celestial Venerable Ling and was in a daze. Celestial Venerable Ling was holding up the celestial river too, but she wasn't in charge of upstream. I'll go take a look upstream, he said. He was tired too and he slowed down a lot. However, he saw too many human gods with their bodies almost crushed on the way. Yet, they still held the celestial river up high to prevent the flood from descending. Some gods died of exhaustion, yet they still stood there. Even in death, their persistence held their body up. Who's upstream? Celestial Venerable Yun asked people who were running away. I don't know. It's a god with 3 heads and 6 arms. I don't know its name, people told him. Celestial Venerable Yun went further upstream. At that moment he saw an imposing figure lifting the celestial river with 6 arms. He bent his body and his heads were tilted. His skin almost burst open, and his god blood almost became a river. Nevertheless he held on. Celestial Venerable Yun arrived and was touched. At that moment he saw fog rising on the celestial river. Beneath the surface, a giant boat was sailing, its long dark figure moving towards the figure holding up the celestial river. It was a ghost ship. Celestial Venerable Yun was stunned. Although Qin Mu was muddle-headed, he saw it too. Wei Suifeng likely came to find him out of concern over his safety. The dragon Qilin and Yenner got the glassy sky pagoda and likely returned to the ghost ship before him, which caused Wei Suifeng to be worried. It was natural, for they were brothers. Wei Suifeng was worried that he would die in the past. The ghost ship rose as it broke up and onto the water's surface. Leave! Big brother, leave! Qin Mu's 3 heads shouted. Don't bring me back, I have to carry this river. Beneath the surface, a murky and blurry voice came. It should have been Wei Suifeng talking. It was just that the ship was in another time and space, so the sound couldn't be transmitted there. The fog thickened as it approached Qin Mu. Qin Mu was losing consciousness as he said, Big brother, give me some time. I'll return myself. The murky voice became louder. The voice from another space and time was weird. But the ship rose and the fog thickened. The ship was passing through time and space to reach this era. I can't leave yet. Qin Mu's vision became even blurrier as he became more muddle-headed and mumbled. I can't leave. If I do, the flood will be unleashed, and countless people will die. At that moment he vaguely saw a figure helping him lift the celestial river. A strange yet familiar voice entered his ear. Celestial Venerable Mu, I'll carry this. You can leave now. Qin Mu looked up and saw Celestial Venerable Yun taking over the celestial river and the weight. With that, his body fell backward. At the same time, the ship burst out of the water with a loud roar, and the fog drowned the falling Qin Mu. Qin Mu's body disappeared as he appeared on the ghost ship. On it, Yenner held up the falling Qin Mu and got him to lie on the boat. The dragon Qilin attended to him immediately. Celestial Venerable Yun couldn't help but feel excited when he watched the large ship in the fog. Celestial Venerable Mu, he shouted towards the ship. When his voice reached the ship, it became hoarse ringing. Qin Mu struggled to stand up, and he got to the front of the ship with Yenner's help. They looked at each other through the fog. Celestial Venerable Yun. Qin Mu shook around. He signaled to Yenner that he needed no help as he adjusted his clothes before greeting the man lifting the celestial river across the fog. Dao friend. Celestial Venerable Yun couldn't hear him properly, but he saw him greeting him and how his lips were moving. He engaged in lip reading and replied, Forgive me for being unable to return the greeting. Will we meet again in the future, Dao friend? Qin Mu looked at his lips, hesitated, and shook his head. That's a pity. Celestial Venerable Yun was stunned. He continued, I really want to meet you and talk to you in detail. Me too. Qin Mu clenched his fists. He pointed at his heart with his thumb and shouted, I really want to talk to you too. You said we won't meet again. Is that because I will die? Celestial Venerable Yun asked. Qin Mu opened his mouth but didn't speak. Celestial Venerable Yun understood him. He looked up into the sky and at the blurry ship, then laughed. That's great. Dao friend Mu. I'll dominate the past, and you'll dominate the future. Qin Mu understood him and cried. He shouted, Do you have wine, big brother? Wei Suifeng grudgingly said. Why are you drinking when you're injured? Although he said that, he retrieved some brilliant booze that he had hidden on the ship. He gave it to Qin Mu and said, Drink it. This is beautiful booze given to me by Celestial Emperor. I didn't dare to drink it, but the booze also became an unchanging substance. After you finish it, it'll return. Qin Mu opened the jar, and the aroma flooded out. He lifted the jar and with heroism flooding through his chest said, I'll toast you, Dao friend Yun. After he finished, he drank it all. Okay. Celestial Venerable Yun laughed. I don't have booze here, so I shall drink from the celestial river instead. He opened his mouth and drank the celestial river water. After Qin Mu finished, he smashed the jar. He was tipsy. Celestial Venerable Yun also seemed to be drunk too. He laughed and said, Dao friend Mu, return. I'm here. Qin Mu bowed and said, Thank you, Dao friend. Take care. Take care. Celestial Venerable Yun bowed slightly too. I'll give the future to you, Dao friend. He straightened up his waist and the fog receded. The ghost ship was gone. Chapter 1093. Crimson Emperor Comprehending the Path. 600,000 years ago, Celestial Venerable Yun tamed the celestial river and got it to flow on the ground. As time went by, heroes disappeared. Another 100,000 years went by in the Dragon Han era. The Dragon Han Celestial Heavens absorbed the Dragon Heaven Celestial Heavens. Only the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens remained in the primordial realm. Although Celestial Venerable Yun was wise enough to be the leader of humans and half-gods, the general trend also made him feel powerless. The Heaven Alliance gradually split as different factions formed within it. On this day, the differences between the Dragon Han Celestial Heavens and Heaven Han Celestial Heavens burst into conflict. The army of the Celestial Heavens came towards the primordial realm as Great Sun Sovereign led the charge with star gods, heavenly spirits, and earth fiends. The Celestial Heavens' 10 guards were activated, and the 4 great heavenly sects and 4 great heavenly teachers were also mobilized. Celestial Emperor ordered the Celestial Venerables to lead their own army in the conquest of the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens. Great Sun Sovereign died on the battlefield from a stray arrow before he could do much. Another ancient god fell with its soul drifting into Yudu. The army that Celestial Venerable Hao led exited the southern heavenly gate. Celestial Venerable Hao put away his divine bow and plainly said, "You knew too much." In the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, Celestial Venerable Yun gave his wife 2 jade boxes, saying, "Take them with you and give them to Tao Ancestor. If he meets Celestial Venerable Qin and Celestial Venerable Mu in the future, pass 1 box to each of them." The great-grandmother of the Yun family took them. She shed a tear and said, "What about you, Emperor?" Celestial Venerable Yun smiled and looked at the approaching army, then said, "I'll stay here. This Dragon Han revolution is incomplete. We thought we overthrew the ancient gods, but in reality we erected a new batch of them after obtaining power. Blood needs to be shed for revolutions and reforms. We must start at the top." He then sent his wife away. Celestial Venerable Yun relaxed and looked at the approaching army of the celestial heavens. The rumbles of war cries came, and it was earth-shattering. He quietly recalled his life, thinking of the many things he had done and the many things he had not. He had many regrets still as he recalled faces and things that made his blood boil. "I'm still not powerful enough to do all these things. If we colluded and moved the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens to the Dragon Han Celestial Heavens and stole the power, maybe I could have lived, but..." He laughed. "How could I collude with you? Doing so would make the masses remain dogs. Mere sacrifices on altars. How would I be any different from the ancient gods? Tao friend of the future, I'll give you what I couldn't do." The battle at the Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was so brutal that words couldn't describe it. In the primordial realm, human civilization was almost wiped out. All that was left was tattered ruins. In the battle, Celestial Venerable Yun was surrounded. Celestial Venerable Hao, Celestial Venerable Hua, God Emperor Lang Xian, Ancestral God King Su, the Rising Heavenly Lady Chang, Celestial Empress, and a mysterious expert Ming Fangyu cut off all hopes of life for Celestial Venerable Yun. In the end, the human Celestial Emperor fell. The Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was breached as the gods of the Celestial Heavens rushed in to raid it. They saw no treasures in the palace, for it was poor. Celestial Venerable Yun was merely angling for fame. The masses laughed. "He's acting poor to buy the people's hearts. There must be a treasure vault elsewhere. I heard that he was the one who raided Clear Sun Hall. He must have hidden the treasures in his own gold vault." Yet when they searched through the entire Heaven Han Celestial Heavens, they found no so-called gold vault. After that, many half-gods searched for treasures for a long time in an attempt to find out where that batch of treasures from Clear Sun Hall ended up. Celestial Venerable Yu brought Celestial Venerable Ling and other human talents away. In the end, the heroism in Celestial Venerable Yu dissipated, and she became disinterested and went into seclusion. Celestial Venerable Ling was only preserved by Celestial Empress because she was useful. Celestial Venerable Yun's corpse was taken away by Ming Fangyu. A year later, he went to the Great Void and put the corpse in the heart of the Grand Emperor's brows. He smiled. "Remember me, Celestial Venerable Yun? I said that you 3 would be my trophies. You're the first." The heart of the Grand Emperor's brows was missing the Grand Primordium Origin Stone, which was incredibly apt for the suppression of Celestial Venerable Yun's corporeal body. In the Supreme Consciousness realm, no one could go there. At best, they could only see the Grand Emperor's war trophy. "Relax, Celestial Venerable Ling and Celestial Venerable, you will be my war trophies in the future too." Ming Fangyu smiled and said, "Because there's another me in this world." The Heaven Han Celestial Heavens was treated as a giant war trophy, and was sent up to the Dragon Han Celestial Heavens to be fused with it. Celestial Venerable Yun opened the Divine Bridge Divine Treasure, which benefited the world, so Celestial Emperor pardoned humans and allowed the Yun family to move to the Celestial Heavens and open the Yun residence. All that was left of human civilization in the primordial realm was ruins. Unknowingly, tens of thousands of years of the Dark Era passed. Civilization began to sprout again as humans went on in the tough conditions that they lived in. On that day, some tough male hunters were hunting with bows. They chased a deer to some ruins and it disappeared. The old ruins were tattered. The primal hunters wiped the mud from their foreheads and looked at the ruins of a civilization dumbfoundedly. Far away, the vast celestial river fell down and became a torrenting river thousands of miles wide. That was where the celestial river fell into the primordial realm. It was called the flood mouth, for it was the source of the flood. There were valleys around there that were like footprints. Ancient legends stated that gods held up the falling celestial river there and saved everyone. It was just that it was a mere legend that few believed. Mankind was primitive and confused back then. Only select techniques were passed down, and they were ordinary ones too. Human gods were rare. Then, a wise and tough man with crimson hair lifted his head. He saw the image of a god with 3 heads and 6 arms. With bulging muscles, he held up his 6 arms as if he was lifting up the falling celestial river. The image was missing, but the pose gave an insurmountable impact that shocked that man. That spirit of carrying the celestial river to protect others made him cry. Unknowingly, he fell into comprehension under that image. Every time he fell into comprehension, he would take a dozen days to do so. Afterward, that man would often appear to comprehend his own ultimate arts and divine arts. Chief Crimson. His people found that place and shouted, "The water of the celestial river is rising. There's going to be a big flood that swallows this place soon. Quickly order our people to leave." He rose and showed off his primordial spirit with 3 heads and 6 arms as he led his people to go on a long migration. He turned around, and the image of that god in the ruins was flooded. He turned back and led his people to the east. A sun burst through the surface as its red light flooded the sky. The floodwater at the back was shone on by the sun. Its color was as crimson as blood as it engulfed everything. Crimson adjusted his posture, and the 3-headed and 6-armed primordial spirit behind him displayed its incredible power to lift his people. His corporeal body grew as he became more powerful, becoming a giant that walked towards where the sun rose. The crimson light era rose from those ruins. That giant with long and messy hair would lead the humans of the ruins to write a new chapter in history. The Dragon Han Revolution hadn't succeeded. The Crimson Light Revolution had just sprouted. The celestial river flowed and time passed. There were few changes in time. All that existed were the movement of humans and the evolution of substances. The warrior at the front fell, and the warrior at the back picked up the flag to continue on bravely. The ghost ship sailed through history. It was sometimes bright and sometimes dark outside the ship. Every rise and setting of light meant a year. Qinmu utilized the Overlord Body 3 elixir technique and felt relieved. He was like sunlight. Junior brother seems to have put down a bunch of worries and become happier as a result. Wei Suifeng smiled and said. Qinmu smiled and replied, "I've always been happy." Wei Suifeng shook his head and said, "When you boarded the ship, I found out that your happiness was an act. You had worries inside and disappointment from not being understood. It was as if a large dark cloud was hovering over you. Now you are truly happy." He gently smiled and said, "Your big senior brother might not be good at much, but I'm good at understanding people." Qinmu laughed before faintly saying, "In the past I always felt that no one understood, comprehended, and inspired me, so I lamented that fact. Now I feel that someone understood, comprehended, supported, and inspired me." He shook his head and said, "Even if that person lives in the past or is dead, he's my Tao friend. Even if we're separated by life and death, it's enough for one to have one intimate friend." Wei Suifeng clapped his hands, praised him, and said, "Where do you intend to go with your last 2 chances to return to the past?" Qinmu stood up and said, "Nowhere. I intend to let go of these 2 chances and return to eternal peace first. I can't keep living in the past. I should look forward to the future. Big senior brother, I'll come and find you after I've thought about it." Wei Suifeng gave a cold humph and muttered, "I'm not your boatman to be called and sent away at will." He reinvigorated himself and called the dragon Qilin and Yenner, hurriedly saying, "Bring out the glassy sky pagoda. Let me see it some more before you 2 leave." Yenner took it and placed it on the deck. Wei Suifeng went to examine it. He was full of praises. He suddenly cried as he gently caressed the treasure before chokingly saying, "Now that we're leaving, when will we see each other again, good baby?" After he finished, he hugged and kissed the treasure. The dragon Qilin and Yenner looked at each other, both feeling a shudder down their spines. Wei Suifeng was obsessed with the glassy sky pagoda. He spoke to the treasure without saying anything about returning Qinmu and the others to eternal peace. Qinmu couldn't help reminding him before Wei Suifeng recovered. He returned it to him after kissing the treasure a few more times. Not once did his gaze leave the treasure as he said, Junior brother, in the future, if we get free of the unchanging substance, can you lend me this to play with for a few days? Qin Mu shook his head and said, This is North Deity's treasure. We merely borrowed it. We have to return it in the future. We have to return it? Wei Suifeng's pupils expanded as his eyeballs turned. Qin Mu instantly knew that he was up to no good. He probably intends to con the treasure away from Prince Yuming. The ghost ship rapidly traversed through history as the fog around it disappeared. Not long after that, it disappeared, and the ship reappeared on Eternal Peace's surging river. Qin Mu looked at the banks. It was surrounded by high divine mountains and verdant flora. It had been an unknown number of years since they left. He disembarked with the dragon Qilin, Yenner, and the heavenly dragons. They pulled the tattered treasure carriage with them. It was so tattered that the canopy was barely attached to the carriage. The carriage was a treasure, but there was little way for it to hold up to such torture. Originally, the carriage had been disassembled. Wei Suifeng and the feathered forest guards on the ship pieced it back together. However, it still wasn't exactly perfect. Some of the soldiers saw how the mist went away and flew onto the banks. Yet, when they left the ship, fog surrounded them. When the fog was gone, so were their bodies. They reappeared on the ghost ship. Wei Suifeng didn't stop them. Instead, he waved and said, Junior brother, don't forget your promise to us. Try and save me as early as you can. Qin Mu and the others landed and waved back. He said, I will. Once one has left the Jade capital for nearly 10 years, one finds it hard to be carefree. Wei Suifeng stood at the head of the ship, drinking and singing with a mighty voice. It's natural to sniff plums and know what to say, like how it's natural to lean towards drinking booze heartily. Nobody wants 100,000 men to use an iron inkstone, so why give 3,000 guests the same bronze plate? The ghost ship sailed away, and the fog rose to engulf the ship. The warriors on the ship heard it and sang along with Wei Suifeng. Accomplishments come as naturally as unstable situations. If one doesn't meet one, don't sabotage your own cause. Qin Mu laughed and turned towards Eternal Peace. He shook his head and shouted, Frivolous. However, has it been 5 years since we left Eternal Peace? If so, am I 10 years old now? He shook his head in a displeased manner as he said, When I transmigrated, I was 5. The age where I began to lose my baby teeth. Yenner cheered as soon as she stepped on Eternal Peace's land. She took out South Deity's vermilion bird feather and said, Please summon my mother's soul master. Qin Mu took it, then looked at the dragon Qilin, who was carrying the glassy sky pagoda. He said, It's too eye-catching. Pai, give it to me. I'll store it for you too. The dragon Qilin gave him the glassy sky pagoda, and Qin Mu put it in the Qin word land. He was satisfied. Yenner whispered grudgingly to the dragon Qilin, How could you give it to him like that? When elders say that they'll store it for you, the likelihood is that they'll never return it. The dragon Qilin stared and said, Really? Isn't that the case? During festivals when I was young, Celestial Venerable, you gave me New Year's money, and after that, she said that she would store it for me to use as a dowry. I never saw it again. Adults are like that? Isn't that so? After I've rescued my mother and we get married, I'll ask for my New Year's money from Celestial Venerable you to be used as a dowry. She saved it for thousands of years. It's a huge sum. I'll see how she can produce it. Thousands of years? Yenner, how old are you right now? Shut up. Since we are getting married. Shut up. Qin Mu came to a place of vast, beautiful scenery. He blew out a breath of vital qi to get the vermilion bird feather in the air. As he moved, he circled the feather and utilized Soul Guide, reciting peculiar yet leisurely Yudu language along with it. Gradually, a peculiar magic power was spread out. His divine art sensed all the souls in soul black sand in heaven and earth. It passed through heavens and worlds. It went up to Xuandu and down to Yudu. It was vast, for it covered the universe's 4 poles. His thoughts and consciousness passed through these worlds figuratively, as he tried to feel the marks left behind by South Deity Vermilion Bird. Gradually, he found some drifting black soul sand in the South Pole. It was part of South Deity's broken soul. He guided it to the primordial realm, and then he felt another part of her soul. Yet this soul was resisting him. Qin Mu was confused as his thoughts and consciousness followed this unique pull through worlds. He reached the celestial heavens and felt the western heavenly gate. His thoughts entered a celestial palace, and it went through palaces and reached a numinous sky hall. He saw a female deity looking at herself, with a face as cold as frost. She coldly laughed and extended her palm to cover and break Qin Mu's soul guide divine art as she angrily said, "Son of Heaven Een, are you trying to trick me again? Haven't you suffered enough from Great Aunt?" Qin Mu recollected his consciousness and took the feather. He shook it to store the black soul sand bursting forth into the feather before shockingly saying, "Yenner, your mother's reincarnation is at the celestial heavens. She's the heavenly master of the western heavenly gate's Jasper Flower Palace." He found it hard to believe as he exclaimed, "The heavenly master of the western heavenly gate's Jasper Flower Palace, one of the 4 great heavenly teachers, is named by Yujing, the 3rd out of the 4 great heavenly teachers. Your mother reincarnated into her, and has reached the Emperor's throne realm. She's in a great position of power in the celestial heavens too." Yenner stared and stuttered. "That heavenly master Yujing of the celestial heavens is my mother? That silly Cultivation from then." Qin Mu nodded and walked around. He muttered, "It seems that I miscalculated. Son of Heaven Een couldn't kill her 99 times. So her vermilion bird god soul never awakened. This is bad, very bad." Green veins popped out of his forehead. They were restless as he said, "Vermilion bird reincarnated and reached the Emperor's throne realm. She must be smart and powerful to become the 3rd heavenly master of the celestial heavens. It'll be very hard to get her to die again. Crucially, I don't know how many times she has died and how far away she is from 99 times. He clenched his fists. "Son of Heaven Een, you're so useless that you can't even kill this lady. You aren't befitting of the name Beauty Killer." The dragon Chilin's mouth twitched as he thought. Clearly Cultmaster failed. Yet he's blaming it on Son of Heaven Een. Cultmaster only wanted to use Son of Heaven Een to make mother-in-law's reincarnation smart enough to survive the Dragon Han era. Yet, due to Son of Heaven Yin's grinding, mother-in-law became so smart that she can't die. He couldn't help but shake his head again. Qin Mu was worried and couldn't help but frown. Which heavenly master, especially those of the celestial heavens, wasn't clever like the devil? To be able to become the 3rd heavenly master, it was clear how intelligent Bai Yujing was. Although the 4 great heavenly teachers were of a lower position compared to the 4 great side deities like Red Deity and Black Deity, they were essentially equals. More importantly, they were of the Emperor's throne realm. Cultivation reincarnated to become Bai Yujing. She was smart and exploitative. Otherwise, she wouldn't be one of the celestial heavens' 4 great heavenly teachers. Yenner looked at him dumbfounded. Qin Mu smiled and said, "Don't worry, your mother's reincarnation has the memory of the previous generations. She recognizes us and now knows why she met us on the celestial river then. She knows who we are and knows that she lost her memory due to Son of Heaven Yin's scheme. She's relying on my jade pendant. All we have to do is find her and tell her that she's South Deity's reincarnation, and she will agree to die again."
Yenner was delighted.
The dragon Chilin blinked and thought, Cultmaster is lying again. Crucially, mother-in-law doesn't know that she's a soul of South Deity. She's already at the Emperor's throne realm and has her own thoughts. Why would she willingly die again? It'll be hard to reawaken the vermilion bird god soul. Qin Mu understood that. He just didn't tell Yenner so that she wouldn't be worried. Suddenly the sky darkened, which shocked Qin Mu. He got her to take out her lantern, then realized that he wasn't in the past but in the present. He smiled and said, "I transmigrated to the past and I've been quite tense. I'm still that way despite returning." He looked up and his smile gradually froze. He saw a giant body blocking out the sky. The proportions of the head and body were wrong, for the body's head was way larger than the torso. There were bone spikes all over the back of its head too. With one shake the bone spike mountains shook. It was a giant beast from the void. It had a large eye with multiple pupils that contracted one after another. With 6 legs and thin membranes between them, it deployed its wings after drilling out of the void and skidded through the sky at fast speeds. Void Beast! Qin Mu was dumbfounded as he watched the void beast fly away. The overlord of the primordial beasts that lived in the ancestral court appeared above eternal peace in the primordial realm. He saw a lady standing on the void beast's back, and it was Divine King Langhua. Qin chased after it when large boats of the celestial heavens burst into the primordial realm's sky, followed by thunder-like drum sounds. A large god pounded the drum as the soldiers on the ships shouted and chased after the void beast. Divine King Langhua found the location of the ancestral court and summoned a void beast from it. Qin hollered, and Yenna rose into the air as a dragon sparrow immediately. She chased after the void beast with them on board. Yenna had already digested most of the swallowed ancient gods, so she flew faster than before. She chased after them, and they saw boat after boat crash while emitting smoke. The further forward they went, the more boats were destroyed and fractured. The warriors on the boats had their limbs cut off. Qin looked into the distance and saw how the void beast went between the void and reality. When the weapons and divine arts of the celestial heavens warriors attacked it, its body went into the void so that they would pass through its body and not threaten it. It was a massacre. The gods and devils of the celestial heavens had never faced such a tricky beast, one that their divine arts were useless against. When Yenna caught up, the battle had ended. The void beast swallowed the last god. It then stopped, looking down and covering its giant mouth as it stared at the approaching dragon sparrow and those on it. It roared loudly as the bone mountains on its back shook threateningly.
Yanna stopped.
Qin looked up and saw Divine King Lang was standing behind one of the ridges of the bone mountains, looking at him. "Holy infant," she whispered. "Divine King." Qin managed to calm down. Langhua was able to summon the void beast. It must have been Luo Xiao who imparted the summoning technique to her. Qin reverse summoning was comprehended from Luo Xiao's summoning technique. Back then, when he designed the reverse summoning sacrificial altar, he didn't hide it from Luo Xiao. And more importantly, Qin had left a summoning sacrificial altar in the ancestral court. In other words, if Luo Xiao had imparted the reverse summoning technique to Langhua, she could use this sacrificial altar to enter the ancestral court. The reincarnated ancient celestial emperor Gu Xiao once said that there was great horror in the ancestral court, and it's unknown whether he was referring to the void beasts or something else. However, if the void beasts in the ancestral court escape, he couldn't help but shudder. He remembered the densely packed void beast eggs in the 19th void and felt a chill down his spine. If the seal of the ancestral court was broken, the void of the ancestral court would then be connected to the void of the outside world, and the densely packed void eggs would fall from the 19th void into the various worlds. That would bring about total extinction and annihilation. The leader of all void beasts was the void beast mother, and the Grand Emperor was her master. If Divine King Langhua had broken the ancestral court's seal, the Grand Emperor would then control all of the void beasts, swallowing up heaven after heaven, world after world. "Langhua, have you been to the ancestral court?" Qin asked. Divine King Langhua's faint gaze fell on him. She shook his head and said, "I have never been there. Without your detailed spacetime coordinates, I'm unable to enter that place. Holy infant, you have been gone for 10 years and should have found out the specific location of the ancestral court, right? Tell me, and I'll summon the void beast mother." She whispered. "With the void beast mother, we won't be afraid of the celestial heavens. The masters of creation can return to our glory days." Qin shook his head and said, "The void beast mother belongs to the Grand Emperor. He was able to enter the great void to perform his massacre because he had the void beasts. Langhua, if you still think that I'm the holy infant of the masters of creation, send this void beast back. You must absolutely not touch these terrifying life forms."
Langhua revealed a smile.
Her body rose and came before the giant eye of the void beast, floating like a tiny speck of dust. She shook her head and said, "Holy infant, you aren't a master of creation after all. To a master of creation, whoever can subdue and domesticate a void beast is a hero, and you have no such intentions." Qin took a step forward and said solemnly, "All of the void beasts obey the void beast mother. It hasn't really been domesticated by you. The void beast mother is controlled by the Grand Emperor. Your efforts are just helping him, without any benefit to the masters of creation." Suddenly the void beast lifted up its eyelid, exposing boundless rows of teeth. It then disappeared behind Langhua. In an instant it appeared in front of Qin, Yenna and the rest. Its ferocious-looking mouth was wide open, preparing to swallow them all. Yenner got a fright and was about to resist. The eye at the heart of Qin Mu's brows opened, visualizing countless sharp spikes, fanning out in a haphazard fashion. These spikes were created inside the void beast's body. When the void beast hurriedly tried to turn incorporeal, Qin Mu's spikes became incorporeal. When it materialized into physical form, the spikes followed suit. The void beast cried endlessly in pain. Its body had been punctured with 1,000 holes and drenched in fresh blood. Holy infant, although you aren't a master of creation, you have completely mastered our methods. Divine King Langwa waved her hand, and the spikes in the void beast disappeared. Visualization is a method to counter the void beasts. If you can deal with a void beast, the masters of creation can naturally deal with it easily as well. To us, this ancient primordial beast doesn't pose any danger. Conversely, it'll become a weapon of our people. Even if the Grand Emperor controls the mother beast, he's unable to threaten us. The void beast closed its mouth and looked at Qin Mu with its giant eye. It then revealed a fearful expression as it hid behind Divine King Langwa, its tail clasped between its legs. Qin Mu wanted to say more, but Divine King Langwa had already entered the void with the void beast. Her consciousness came rippling over. Holy infant, today was just an experiment. I'll summon more void beasts, but rest assured, it's not because I want to deal with you. I'll lead these void beasts to the great void, where they will confront the celestial heavens. She and the void beast disappeared, her consciousness gradually weakening. In this case, I can help buy time for you to grow up. Isn't this the best of both worlds? I'm worried about you, Qin Mu whispered as he faced the high-altitude cold wind. The Grand Emperor has always wanted to break open the ancestral court. If the evil in it is released, it'll bring about a catastrophic disaster to the world. But before that, you will be killed by him. He, together with the Dragon Qilin and the rest, headed towards eternal peace. Before returning to the celestial heavens to see Bai Yujing, he needed to repair the heavenly dragon treasure carriage. This carriage had already been damaged thrice, with the most recent incident being at the West Pole. It would need to be repaired for them to arrive at the celestial heavens quickly. Yenner was still a little chubby, so her speed was slower than the heavenly dragon treasure carriage. Moreover, he needed to settle some matters in eternal peace. As for Heavenly Master Bai Yujing, if she doesn't want to die, I'll have to break the divine art of Son of Heaven in at the source.
Qin Mu pondered.
In order to break the divine art of Son of Heaven in at the source, he needed to understand the detailed structure of the Mingdu Heavenly Gate. There's a Mingdu Heavenly Gate with Diu. As long as I find her, the mystery of Son of Heaven Yin's divine art will no longer be a secret. His gaze flickered. Since the calamity of eternal peace erupted, Diyue and the others had quietly vanished and hadn't been seen in the primordial realm. Diyue, Tianshu, Sakurbuddha, and the rest didn't travel to Carefree Village. Saint Woodcutter had also disappeared. Could they be hiding in Fengdu? Where is Fengdu today? Perhaps eternal peace will know where it is. While he was thinking, the earth suddenly rippled like waves. Qin Mu stopped and saw soil flying around him as trees sprouted up wildly. Their vines coiled and danced like dragons, growing at lightning speed. Within a few breaths, the vegetation there looked like thousands of years had passed and had transformed into a dense primitive jungle. If one was to look from outside, they would find that the beautiful piece of land where Qin Mu and the rest originally stood had become a green dome with a radius of more than 100 miles. It had sealed up the area and was extremely airtight. 10 years. A faint sound traveled from the densely packed trees. Between the thick trees, vines rustled as they slithered around, looking like giant pythons. It felt like someone was sobbing, sending chills down everyone's spines. Celestial Venerable Mu, you promised me that you would summon my soul and revive me in 10 years. You are already 2 months late. Qin Mu and the rest landed. The ground in front of them shook and cracked as a gigantic stone coffin slowly rose from the ground. The stone coffin opened, and the corpse of the High Emperor howled as corpse aura filled the air. He was about to jump out of the coffin to kill. Hold it.
Qin Mu laughed.
Mother Earth, I came back to fulfill my promise of resurrecting you. Do you know that I was banished to the distant ancient era struggling to survive? Finally, I made it back alive precisely because I have conviction supporting me. That is, to fulfill my promise to Mother Earth. The claws of the High Emperor's corpse stopped in front of him, though their stench drifted forward. Qin Mu's expression remained unchanged. Among the vines, the voice of Mother Earth traveled over, sneering. Are you going to fool me again? You are no longer the invincible great wizard. Celestial Venerable Mu, the ancient gods are saying that Celestial Venerable Hu killed South Deity, and that you were unable to resurrect her. You are now useless to the ancient gods. Her voice was erratic. A green vine stretched forward like a poisonous python and quietly arrived at Qin Mu's side, coiling around him as it grew. The voice of Mother Earth came from the leaves of the vine. In the past, you had the favor of the ancient gods because everyone thought you had the ability to resurrect them. But now, Celestial Venerable Hua has made you lose this ability. Without it, you are just an ordinary human. The branches of the vine gently wrapped around Qin Mu's neck. There were spikes all over it. With a flick of Qin Mu's fingers, the vines lit up in flames, turning into ashes. The voice of Mother Earth was now further away and came from the crown of a large tree. Celestial Venerable Mu, you have a glib tongue, and your mouth is full of lies, trying to win some time on your deathbed. You run and hide from place to place just to keep yourself alive. The reason you are late is that you know you are nothing but a rat who angles for fame. Today, I'll let you die here quietly and become nutrients for the plants. She laughed coldly. No one will know that you died here at the hands of this already dead ancient god. My child, attack. The High Emperor's corpse roared and pounced towards Qin Mu. Before he could reach him, the glassy sky pagoda slammed in front of Qin Mu.
Qin Mu bowed.
The glassy sky pagoda trembled as thousands of light rays fell on the High Emperor's corpse, suppressing this former celestial emperor of the High Emperor era. The emperor's corpse was trapped and roared repeatedly. Qin Mu couldn't help but exclaim in admiration. The reputation of the world's top treasure was well deserved. He stretched out a finger and gently touched the heart of the corpse's brows. The dead should return back to earth. Count. The emperor's corpse suddenly had a dazed expression. Behind it, a heavenly door of heaven and earth appeared, bursting open. The High Emperor's corpse let out a mournful scream as its soul flew out from its back, flying straight into that door. The heavenly door of heaven and earth sank into the ground and vanished. Qin Mu gently touched the glassy sky pagoda, and the layers of its canopy closed up together. He then said leisurely, I'm still the invincible great wizard who controls life and death. Mother Earth, it appears that you don't take me seriously by using the Emperor's corpse against me. I have sent your child to Yudu to let Earth Count help you discipline them. Is this treasure the glassy sky pagoda? The sound of Mother Earth's exclamation traveled over. Suddenly the earth shook violently. An extremely thick root of the primordial tree burrowed out of the ground, and a large flower speedily sprouted from it. That flower bloomed as it emitted the voice of Mother Earth. This treasure was stolen and disappeared 600,000 years ago. How did it end up in your hands? Qin Mu knocked on the glassy sky pagoda, and its canopy fanned out again. It could form the 28 heavens within an instant, in case Mother Earth made a sneak attack. It's none of your business.
Qin Mu laughed.
Mother Earth, I'll keep my promise and resurrect you. However, you don't have your corporeal body now. Even if I bring you back to life, it isn't of much use to you. If you aren't in a hurry, why not wait for a few more years? I'm unable to wait. The thick root of Mother Earth revolved around the glassy sky pagoda like a poisonous dragon. It seemed to be looking for a flaw in the treasure in order to seize it. You will summon my soul today. I want to be reborn today. Qin Mu shook his head and said, with just your soul without your corporeal body, your combat power won't be greatly improved. How will you be able to seek revenge? Do you want to go over to Celestial Venerable Xiao to take back the primordial tree? He chuckled. The primordial tree is in Celestial Venerable Xiao's hands, and is guarded by the divine weapon Celestial Venerable Yu. Trying to take back the primordial tree with just your primordial tree root and 3 souls. I'm afraid you'll die again. As for your corporeal body, I have my own ways. Don't you worry. Mother Earth continued to probe the exterior of the glassy sky pagoda, searching for its flaw. She said coldly, you only need to resurrect the 3 souls for me. Qin Mu's heart trembled slightly, and the corner of his left eye twitched slightly. He couldn't help but think of the other little primordial tree, Gong Sun Yen. Suddenly, He knew the reason behind Mother Earth's eagerness for resurrection. Qin Mu's eyes flickered as he said solemnly, "Fine. I'll summon the 3 souls for you. However, I need 10 days to prepare." "Fine, I'll give you 10 days. The root Mother Earth quickly retracted, disappearing into the depths of the earth. Suddenly, the lush forests around them withered, instantly turning into black dead wood. Even the fallen leaves quickly withered. Everything around them had become destitute. Cult Master. The dragon Qilin was about to open his mouth to ask a question when Qin Mu raised his hand. He quickly closed his mouth and looked forward observantly. In front of them, the ancient High Emperor's corpse was motionless. Yenner and the 6 heavenly dragons originally planned to ask questions. Upon seeing what happened between Qin Mu and the dragon Qilin, they all stared at the Emperor's corpse. They became vigilant as well. Although the Emperor's soul in the High Emperor's corpse was sent to Yudu by Qin Mu, he was, after all, Mother Earth's son. Earth Count would still show some respect for Mother Earth, and she would definitely be able to get back the soul. Mother Earth left the Emperor's body and the stone coffin there, indicating that she hadn't given up on the glassy sky pagoda, this strange treasure. Suddenly, a delicate little root burrowed out of the ground and picked up the High Emperor's corpse, placing him back into the stone coffin. The root then wrapped around the coffin and slowly sank into the ground. Qin Mu grabbed the glassy sky pagoda and said with a smile, "It seems that Mother Earth is gone." The dragon Qilin opened his mouth but didn't speak. At this moment, countless roots burrowed beneath the ground. The earth seemed like it was boiling as numerous thick roots charged towards the glassy sky pagoda with a whoosh. The dragon Qilin, Yenner, and the rest shook unsteadily before getting lifted and thrown by the surging earth. The moment that Mother Earth made her move, Qin Mu bowed, opening up the 28 heavens of the glassy sky pagoda. Cracking sounds were heard as those thick roots were broken by the continuously transforming heavens. The roots of Mother Earth were so hard that only a practitioner at the Emperor's throne realm could break them. However, Qin Mu personally controlled the glassy sky pagoda, making the 28 heavens go through repeated iterations of changing their order. Therefore, breaking those roots was as easy as cutting melons and cabbages. There was a low roar from under the ground. The broken roots were like giant snakes squirming on the 28 heavens, trying to escape the control of the glassy sky pagoda and return to the main body. Except why would Qin Mu allow her to collect the roots? The roots were sent to the depths of the glassy sky pagoda, one after another, making it impossible for Mother Earth to collect them back.
Celestial Venerable Mu.
The earth shook violently again. Beneath the ground, a dark behemoth was about to surface. That was the root of the primordial tree, which was extremely humongous. Countless roots were entangled together, forming a gigantic ball of roots. Qin Mu had seen this ball of roots before when he helped Mother Earth fight against Celestial Venerable. How back then? Qin Mu raised his hand to grab the glassy sky pagoda and stabbed this treasure forcefully into the ground, laughing coldly. "Mother Earth, your horizons are too shallow. Do you really want to provoke me for this treasure and lose your chance at rebirth?" The tremors from the depths of the earth stopped, and the tentacle-like roots slowly retracted into the ground. Qin Mu pulled up the glassy sky pagoda and said coldly, "Forgetting what is right and wrong because of a small benefit. Mother Earth, you disappoint me. Your failure isn't accidental. I would like to give you a word of advice. If you want to die, feel free to make a move on Gongsun Yan. Don't forget, I can make you invincible, and I can also doom you to eternal damnation." As soon as Qin Mu said those words, a violent tremor came from the ground. Mother Earth was enraged by his threats. However, instead of continuing to attack him, she retracted into the distance. Qin Mu heaved a sigh of relief and opened the third eye at the heart of his brows. It pierced deep into the ground, looking into it for a long time before confirming that Mother Earth was gone. Only then did he say, "You can talk." The dragon Qilin also heaved a sigh of relief, saying, "After the resurrection of Mother Earth's souls, she'll definitely occupy the primordial tree in Eternal Peace's capital, which is the body of Gongsun Yan. For her rebirth this time, her strength will be greatly weakened. It'll be impossible for her to take back her body from Celestial Venerable Shao. Hence, she'll definitely make a move on Gongsun Yan." Qin Mu nodded and said solemnly, "I have already given her a warning. I can't help her if she wants to court her own death." He put away the roots of the primordial tree that were severed by the glassy sky pagoda. Although the vital essence of Mother Earth had dissipated from them, they were still the roots of the primordial tree and were extremely hard. The roots could only be injured by emperors thrown divine weapons, and were definitely the best choice for refining treasures. What truly surprised Qin Mu was the glassy sky pagoda. He didn't mobilize too much vital qi to stimulate the power of this treasure. Instead, he relied on the strength of the glassy sky pagoda to cut the roots of the primordial tree into those neatly organized pieces. It was as easy as chopping melons and cabbage. If he could invoke the full power of the glassy sky pagoda, how terrifying would that be? Good treasure. He looked at this strange treasure, revealing a mesmerized look. He then hurriedly shook his head. He had almost become as obsessed as Wei Suifeng with the glassy sky pagoda. However, the glassy sky pagoda did seem to have an alluring power that could infatuate people. Qin Mu even had the thought not to return this treasure to Prince Yuming. There's something strange about this treasure. Qin Mu was secretly aware that the glassy sky pagoda wasn't as simple as just being the top treasure in the world. It wasn't just a powerful treasure. It could even mesmerize his Tao heart. Could it be the ancient god egg? He looked at the top of the glassy sky pagoda. This ancient god egg was very responsive and was different from the ancient celestial emperor Taichu or the egg of Taishu, which was very strange indeed. In that case, why did Cult Master agree to help her summon her souls in 10 days? The dragon Qilin asked puzzledly. The dragon Qilin's gaze also landed on the glassy sky pagoda. He had controlled this strange treasure before, and was clearly mesmerized by it. Except that he wasn't as obsessed as Wei Suifeng. Qin Mu saw him gazing at it, and his heart shuddered slightly. He put the glassy sky pagoda away and smiled. Since I have promised her, I won't go back on my word. Moreover, the 10-year period is up. When I resurrect Mother Earth, that will show the rest of the ancient gods that I'm still the invincible great wizard, and that they still have to continue supporting me. The dragon Qilin sobered up and said hesitantly, after the 3 souls of Mother Earth are gathered, will she take over the body of Gong Sun Yen? Qin Mu walked forward and said indifferently, in that case, I'll make it clear to the rest of the ancient gods not to commit evil. I can resurrect them, but I can also destroy them. He clenched his fists and said coldly, these ancient gods should think about this carefully and respect their allies. Everyone hurried towards Eternal Peace's capital city. After 7 days they finally arrived. Looking from a distance, the capital city had an upper and a lower level. The upper capital city was built on the canopy of the primordial tree, and the lower capital city was built around it. The last time when Qin Mu left, he gave Gong Sun Yen some primordial liquid. Gong Sun Yen must have absorbed the primordial liquid, causing the primordial tree to grow wildly. The original Eternal Peace capital city couldn't accommodate it. So Ling Yuxiu had to lead the officials to build another capital city. The original capital was also expanded to accommodate a larger population. Outside the capital, the number of mud river manufacturing factories had increased. In the factories, the furnaces and the mechanical giants worked day and night as the divine arts practitioners continuously forged all sorts of divine weapons. Qin Mu slowed down his pace and traveled around for a week. He discovered that people of Eternal Peace were now wealthier than before. There were also a large number of merchant ships flowing in and out, bustling with activity. The Mud River was packed with people from the celestial heavens and all parts of the primordial realm, as well as merchant ships from the various heavens. The merchant ships of the celestial heavens came to transport away the spirit weapons required by the divine soldiers and the gods of the celestial heavens for everyday use, while the merchant ships of the various great heavens and countries of the primordial realm often ferried or in other minerals produced in these places. Eternal Peace exchanged those spirit weapons for celestial currency from the celestial heavens, and then used the celestial currency to purchase or in other minerals and materials from the various great heavens. Within 10 years, a sizable industry had been established. And this was just one small part of Eternal Peace. In fact, apart from the capital city, there were River Tomb, the Overlord Prefecture, Surging River, and Li River in the south. Their scale of development wasn't insignificant, at least the same if not better than the capital city. The capital city was responsible for forging divine weapons. River Tomb was responsible for imprinting runes. The Overlord Prefecture was responsible for the design and refining of spirit pills and spirit medicine. Surging River was responsible for the forging of formation diagrams. And Li River was responsible for the design and forging of the spirit weapons for everyday use. Each of these places had their specialties. Qin Mu found Mute and blind but saw that Butcher was there as well. Qin Mu's face slightly changed, and he had a little hesitation in his heart. However, he was spotted by Blind, who had especially good eyesight. The loud and clear voice of Mute traveled over. Moore is here. Qin Mu obediently stepped forward. Butcher took out 2 divine knives and threw one over. Moore performed some strokes. Let me see if you have managed to enter the path through knives over this period. Qin Mu caught the divine knife. It was close to 10 feet long. He clasped his index and middle finger together as he touched the blade gently, sliding along the thin blade from the handle to the tip. He then laughed heartily. Grandpa Butcher, I haven't comprehended the Tao of knives, but I comprehended something better. Butcher walked out with his huge knife, raising his eyebrows as he smiled. Better? Little brat, since the beginning of time until the present day, people who deceived their masters and destroyed their ancestors all had the same tone as you. Are you planning to beat me up badly? Qin Mu carried the long knife on his shoulder and took off his shoes, following Butcher out of the factory barefooted. I dare not deceive my masters or destroy my ancestors. However, I have seen many things from my recent travels and have reached a certain level of attainment in my Tao heart. Butcher narrowed his eyes and stomped with his giant feet. The shoe on his foot was smashed by his knife chi. What is Tao heart good for? I'll chop your Tao heart into pieces. Mute hurriedly took out a box to sit down and retrieved his tobacco bag. He pinched some tobacco leaves and lit his water pipe, grinning as he took a puff. Blind also came out leaning on the side. Mute offered him the water pipe, but he rejected it with a wave of his hand. He then whispered, People who deceived their masters and destroyed their ancestors all had the same tone as Moore? Mute nodded. Blind hesitated. That was how I talked to my master back then. Mute made a stroke and smiled gleefully. Moore learned that from you. Butcher waved his long knife, and his knife light fluttered and danced across the sky with a whoosh. It then retracted into his long knife as it stabbed into the ground. He plainly said, You say that your Tao heart is better, so let's compare our Tao hearts first. He then closed his eyes. Qin Mu shook his hand and stabbed his long knife in front of him, also closing his eyes. Good knife technique. Blind exclaimed. Mute was spooked by him. He angrily stared at him and waved all sorts of hand gestures. Blind closed his eyes to look at Butcher and Qin Mu's confrontation. He leisurely said, Mute, you have 2 eyes yet you see nothing. Let me help you. He put his palm on Mute's face to cover his eyes. Mute was going to push his hands away when he shuddered, for he really saw it. He saw Butcher and Qin Mu standing there, not moving, yet their spirits were in an ever-changing form. Thousands of knife skills went towards one another like streaks of light. The knife lights were bright and shiny. It contained large knives that were so big that they could cleave the heavens. There were also tiny knives that were as delicate as flowing water. That was how ever-changing their spirits were. Every moment countless skills were used. The fighting was so intense that people couldn't take their eyes off of it. They were like 2 imposing knife gods learning and comprehending each other via their extreme knife skills. Mute stared blankly. At the same time, he heard the sounds of war drums as loud as thunder or the cheer of billions. It was the spirit coming from Qin Mu's body. In his days it was as if he passed through ancient history and saw how a knife light scraped through endless darkness. It was as if he saw the history in which people of the past fought. In the knife light and sword shadows, powerful muscles rose in the dark to fight and defend against the treacherous calamity of that era, the injustice. They carried the darkness to overcome the dangers. A batch of people fell one after another, yet in the sea of corpses more rose. They walked towards the light from the darkness, from the past to the present. The spine of this race was never broken. Mute's blood boiled and he couldn't help but shout, Good knife skill! Blind put his hand down and leisurely said, You saw it. Mute nodded. He felt that his face was wet. Surprisingly, he couldn't help but cry when looking at Qin Mu's knife skills. He blinked and said, I'm choking on this water. It's spicy. The dragon Qilin stepped forward carefully before whispering. Old masters, how's the contest? Why can't I understand it? Blind and Mute glanced at him. Blind said. This fellow doesn't get it yet? Not yet. The dragon Qilin laughed in apology and said, Old masters, I don't understand, yet you two say it's good. Please guide me on this. Mute took out a small silver pellet from his box, threw it to him and said, Throw it in the middle of them. The dragon Qilin threw it. It was a divine weapon, and it reacted violently upon reaching the center. As if it was incited, it fractured towards the outside and instantly became thousands of divine spears. This was Eternal Peace's refinement method and a spear pellet designed by Eternal Peace's Overlord Prefecture Heavenly Saint Academy. By compressing countless spear handles, it formed a sphere. Eternal Peace's refinement standard, in both design and accuracy, became #1 in the worlds and was only inferior to the Patriarch Creation Palace of the Celestial Heavens. Another 1,000 divine spears came out, yet their tips were sliced upon as if they were cleaved by invisible divine knives. They fell harmlessly to the ground. Soon, countless large spears became swimming dragons that danced in the air before attacking Qin Mu and Butcher. The divine spears were potent enough to strike back automatically when ambushed due to River Tomb Academy's runes. Such divine spears could save lives in large-scale battles, so they were popular in the celestial heavens. They spent a lot on buying them. However, before the spears even fell, they disintegrated into countless fragments that fell down like rain. The dragon Qilin was spooked. The refinement standard of Eternal Peace had reached such a standard that even he was amazed. He returned to the past with Qin Mu and saw rough divine weapons, so when they returned to Eternal Peace, they felt that the past they were in was a barbaric and primitive era. However, the development in Eternal Peace in the past 5 years was rapid. They became many times more advanced than before, which naturally shocked the dragon Qilin. What shocked him even more was how Qin Mu and Butcher's knife skills were so accurate and sharp despite them both having their eyes closed. They stood there as if they were harmless, yet if one stepped between them, they would probably be cut into countless pieces instantly. Cultmaster is more powerful too. The dragon Qilin blinked. We returned to the ghost ship after stealing the glassy sky pagoda, and abandoned him in the Dragon Han era. What did he experience then? His Tao heart must have been upgraded by a lot during that period of time. The upgrading of his Tao heart elevated his spirit, bearing, experience, and knowledge exponentially. That was why neither of them was at a disadvantage despite their knife paths colliding. People on the outside came for the commotion, while people on the inside understood everything they watched. Without the commotion, the only person who could understand them was blind. In the gaze of his god-mind's eyes, Qin Mu's spirit became more oppressive, and it even briefly overwhelmed Butcher. This was after his experience, of course. Without the experience of transmigrating to the Dragon Han, and the emotions he felt from experiencing the great historical revolutions, it would have been hard for Qin Mu to nurture such an undefeatable spirit. Butcher can't take it anymore, he has to strike. As soon as he thought about that, the divine knife in front of Butcher suddenly rose like a dragon. Butcher held it and struck. Qin Mu's spirit was too strong. If it continued, there would be no way for him to crush Qin Mu's Tao heart. Instead, he would be defeated without a battle. This was something a strong practitioner who entered the path with the knife couldn't tolerate. Besides, Butcher felt that Qin Mu was feeding his knife with him. Feeding the knife was feeding the path. First one fed the qi. If one had enough qi, the knife would be quick enough, and one could feed the knife skill. With good knife skills one would be powerful. Feeding the knife skill again would allow one to get the hang of it and as such understand the spirit. Feeding the spirit one would get the knife path. For a long time, Qin Mu hadn't lacked comprehension or knife skills. He just failed to understand the underlying spirit of the knife path. Now that his spirit was there, having his spirit merely touch the knife path wasn't enough. One couldn't enter the path with the knife just from comprehension alone, one had to strike. His spirit was like a seed that hadn't sprouted yet. It merely grew in the shell for he needed pressure, stronger pressure. Butcher pulling out his knife gave him that. Butcher was the harshest teacher in disabled elderly village. He was always harsh when teaching Qin Mu. If old Ma wasn't protecting him, Qin Mu would have died to him at least 100 times. This was no exception. Butcher, with his long knife, unleashed the first move of the Heaven Knife, midnight battle across stormy cities. This was a knife skill of the battlefield. During Butcher's era, the best weapon was a knife. It was as fast as lightning. On the battlefield, only people fast with the knife could survive. As a being who comprehended the 9 heavens of the knife path before becoming a god, his attainment in knife skills skyrocketed when he reached the period of eternal pieces reform. He made this stone to grind knives, which was so good that it could make Qin Mu's knife bright and sharp. Butcher was once a divine arts practitioner of the army, someone who had crawled out of a mountain of corpses. He became a generational knife expert as he used his knife to nurture his heroism to become a generational scholar. He was the most dazzling person of that era. By deploying his knife skill, he forced Qin Mu to take his knife out too. Midnight battle across stormy cities. Their knives were like lightning in the night, so fast that one couldn't see them clearly. Their figures and steps moved like illusions, while their knife hums aligned with their ears. Whoosh! Their knives were so fast that the air grew hot due to friction. Divine fire was ablaze in the knife light. When their knives collided, 2 flaming tornadoes were created, in which countless knife lights crisscrossed. They stepped on the void as they rose. Their flaming tornadoes twisted together, causing flames to grow to 1,000 feet tall. Their long knives moved in all directions and were elusive. Slow. 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 You're still too slow. Butcher's voice came from the sky. It was vague and elusive as he furiously scolded Qin Mu. Faster. Faster. You have to forget about your divine arts, your title, and your other divine weapons. All you have is a knife, and that's all that you believe in. Even the best painter can't draw the spirit of people. With your spirit, make it your knife and your path. Your knife is the flame in your heart. Something unequal? Cleave it with a knife. An obstacle? Cleave it with a knife. A god or devil blocking you? Cleave it with a knife. An unfair heaven? Cleave it with a knife. Lawlessness in this land? Cleave it with a knife. A tactics grandmaster would never let his knife leave his hand and would never use divine arts. At the gate of the shipyard, Blind and Mute became concerned. Blind whispered, "This pig butcher seems to be going crazy, right?" Mute nodded. "He hasn't been like this for a couple of years. When he's crazy, he even chops himself. If he does, can you stop him?" Blind said anxiously, "It would be hard. He's always been slightly stronger than me. Although I comprehended better things, he also seems to have comprehended impressive things. It would be hard for me to block his attack before he cleaved Muir." The dragon Qilin whispered on the side. "Old Master's cult master is strong. He killed the 5 elements ancient gods in the past." Mute and Blind were shocked. They sat there and squinted their eyes before laughing. "Then we aren't afraid. Muir is fighting the pig butcher with his cultivation. I'm quite excited to see what he'll do to the pig butcher when he enters the path with the knife." Hee. They had naughty smiles on their faces. Yenner blinked and whispered, "Are Master's elders all like this?" The dragon Qilin hesitated before whispering back, "Almost all of them. Almost none are decent, except maybe Granny C. But she has a lot of evil aura around her." While they were talking, the knife skills Qin Mu and Butcher were deploying in the skies was ever-changing. The power in their knives grew stronger. It was sun on East Sea 1,000 layers wave first, then it became raising the knife from forbidden. Soon every cloud has a silver lining. Long knife hangs below the moonlight, and among the stars the heavenly horses were used. Finally, knife opening the bright moon ring was used. With the deployment of one heavenly knife after another, their knife skills grew more and more powerful. When one looked up, they could see black lines suddenly appearing in the sky. It was the space cleaved out from the speed of the divine knives. In the sky, countless stars shone, and celestial heaven's gods peeked out from the star picture above eternal peace. They were maintaining the orbits of the star picture formation of the primordial realm, and were spooked by the battle. Those gods were worried that they would attack the star picture due to their bloodlust and kill them too. Even more terrifying was how one of the 2 in the duel was clearly a lunatic. He unleashed all of his big and powerful knife skills as if he was suicidal. It appears that the previous star picture was cleaved open by him, they discussed. Butcher shouted and howled as he unleashed his blade crazily. His voice was as loud as thunder, and it caused ringing noises in the ears of the gods above. You have boundless spirit and power, yet they aren't unleashed along with your knife. He became crazier as he hacked at Qinmu until he couldn't dodge to his side. He had to back off with blood all over him. It was as if he was trying to cleave Qinmu to death with his knife instead of helping him comprehend his knife path. Qinmu was suppressed until his spirit kept on compressing and retreating. It was like a sprout suppressed in a shell, unable to peek out. Butcher was thirsty, and as such, his knife skills became more and more terrifying. He hollered, "Unleash! Unleash! Unleash! Your path, everything you want to protect, and the beliefs you persist in, unleash all of them. Don't hold back. Don't be worried. Don't have any burdens. Unleash! Unleash all of them on me." Qinmu's muscles bulged as his hair split open. He suddenly roared, "Aiya!" His vital qi burst forth, his blood and essence surged, and his spirit became torrents. His spirit, vital qi, essence, and blood flooded into his knife. The arduous journey of humans in the past, the hardships they suffered, and the passionate hot blood of warriors found in sorrowful songs were all unleashed in this knife. Knife light lit up the sky and cracked open the star picture in it. The long knife pressured and broke everything as it cleaved towards Butcher with boundless power. At that moment, in the shipyards on the banks of the Mud River, divine knives being manufactured suddenly trembled. Countless divine knives stood up and gave off divine light that rushed into the sky in spectacular fashion. Butcher laughed and faced it with his knife, shouting, "Heaven Knife Realm!" His knife realm expanded. The first, second, and third heavens of the knife path were released. Instantly, they became the 14 heavens of the knife path that formed a heaven path realm. It was different from the knife path sky realm that Luo Wushuang was great at calculating. His heaven knife realm was grand and lacking in those precise calculations. All he had was his long knife. Qinmu cleaved it and the heaven knife realm. He followed suit by cutting into the first, second, and third heavens. The long knife broke the waves and knife path heavens one after another until they were all cleaved. The knife was so fast that it cut open the 14th heaven with one knife and broke through the heaven knife realm. Butcher pulled out his knife and struck out in front of him. Ding! His knife met Qinmu's, and their divine knives collided. Both halted to a stop. The energy contained in Qinmu's knife was instantly dissipated by Butcher's knife. At the same time, the countless divine knives in the shipyards below fell back down. They gathered back their divine lights and became lifeless again. In the sky, Qinmu withdrew, held his knife in reverse, and bowed towards Butcher. Butcher adjusted his long knife in the same way before returning the favor, saying, "You entered the path. You didn't waste my efforts. You shall stay here to think about the name of the first heaven of your knife path while I drink below."
Qinmu nodded.
Butcher fell from the sky. As he landed, his steps were clearly haggard. Blind rejoiced in his misfortune as he asked, "How's your injury?" Butcher stared at him and the dragon Qilin. He looked angry as he asked, "Where's the dragon saliva? Take it out to heal me."